the Flyers outscore the Bruins 3-1 in the third period and win it by that final score. And the Bruins, for the first time in 9 games, will go without a point in the standings. Final score, Flyers 3, Bruins 1.
Coming straight from the underground.
.5, the Sports Hub. Matt Dolloff and Ty Anderson here with you from 2 to 5. Today is a Sports Hub Underground takeover here on 98.5. Good to see you, Ty.
Hey, what's going on? How we doing?
Good. George behind the glass. We're live on YouTube. Is that correct, George? I believe he said we're on YouTube.
That is an affirmative.
All right. We are also on YouTube if you want to check us out there. If anyone that knows the Sports Hub Underground knows we talk mostly about the Boston Bruins, so we will be Boston Bruins heavy today. I think anytime you got Ty in the studio, it's good to pick his brain and get his thoughts on all things Bruins, all things NHL, so we will be doing plenty of that. And if you want to call in any kind of thoughts on the Bruins, 617-779-0985, feel free to do that. We got you for the next 3 hours. Bit of a tough loss yesterday for the Bruins, Ty. I know there's not a ton to pull from that individual game, but I do want to start there. That's the most immediate thing. We're also going to talk big picture. We got the trade deadline coming up this week for the Bruins, so I do want to get into that. But yesterday, Ty, not a ton happened until the third period. And obviously the floodgates open for both teams. Scoring-wise, end of the day, you could chalk it up to Daniel Vladar getting revenge on his former team, so to speak. A great game for him. He sort of kept them in it as the Bruins sort of controlled the play for most of the first 2 periods there. And then all of a sudden, that first Flyers goal, you could say it's a fluky goal because of that bounce that it took, but am I justified in being a little upset with how the Bruins handled that play? Because it felt like in that moment, once they saw that bounce, everyone on the ice was like, well, this one's going in. We'll figure it out from here. But I know it was a fluky play, but what was your thought on that first Flyers goal that sort of completely changed the game?
Well, it comes a minute and a half after the Bruins get a goal wiped off the board for a goaltender interference, and those things tend to kind of have a way of coming back to haunt you. So, I mean, you want your defenseman to kind of clear that out there. They're all kind of caught flat-footed. They weren't expecting that bounce. I think they're going the other direction.
The bounce was perfectly to where nobody was. That was unreal.
I mean, you essentially get beat by 2 guys to it. Like Christian Dvorak is the first one who gets the puck, and he sends a backhand feed right to Konechny with nobody on him. So you basically lose the race 2-0 there. You don't even have a person in a defending position or defending territory. So it's tough, right? Because you can say, okay, well, Swayman should dive out and try to poke check it away. Well, what if he misses? Now it's a wide open cage, And so I think that, it's kind of a crap luck day. That's kind of how it happens. In their second goal, Jamie Drysdale is not a Bruin within 6-7 feet of him. It's just from right between the circles. It's a driveway. There's an empty driveway, no cars there.
Well, quickly on the first goal though, before we get to the second one, Dvorak reacted like he sort of knew there was a chance of that bounce. This is my question about that. Because you know how TD Garden has kind of weird bounces with the boards, and the Bruins kind of know the confines of the rink there? Do you think there's a chance maybe the Flyers knew there was a chance that they could get that bounce on that play?
I mean, it's possible, right? I these boards are weird now, and they sometimes when there's a national TV game, they're almost reinforced because they want to put a camera there, so they have to put another line of piping or metal there. I don't know. I haven't been to Philly's rink. I don't know the.
You haven't gone down there with a tape measure?
No, I haven't gone. I haven't. I've never covered a game there actually, because when the Bruins would play there in the playoffs, it predates my time having the funds to be able to go and cover road games without completely breaking the bank. So I've actually never been to that rink. I just know it changes names 1,000 times. Now it's something called Xfinity Mobile Arena, which I was like, what does that even mean?
It's not the Wells Fargo?
I thought it was Wells Fargo, yeah.
Oh my God.
Before that it was Wachovia Center, and then it was Forum Core Bank or so. I don't know. It's just stupid. Just call it Comcast Arena. It's owned by Comcast. The Flyers are owned by Comcast. Who cares? Just call it Comcast Arena.
Yeah, BlackRock Arena. It's Koch Brothers Arena.
Lockheed Martin Arena. I feel like every arena is different, right? And certain guys know. Jamie Drysdale, smart defenseman. He probably knows that there's a bit of give there, a bit of bounce there, but it's got to hit it the right way. It's kind of like how Lindholm knew that in that Game 7 against Toronto, he knew that, hey, those boards are lively in that corner. If I dump it in here, and Pasternak's got a step.
That's what I thought of. That goal.
It's very similar to that. So like certain arenas have live boards. That's true in any hockey rink. Like even locally, hockey town, the boards are always dead. I remember they're always dead boards. You dump it in, you're like, oh, it's just gonna stay there. I guess.
mean, everything's dead at hockey town.
So, but no, every stadium is different. So I don't know. I feel like that was a game where if you look at the box score, you're not going to like what Swayman did, but if you look at the overall picture, he was great. I thought in the first period when they did not have their game at all.
Yeah, he made a number of unbelievable saves in the first.
He had one with I don't know if it was Dvorak or somebody was like in his lap basically, like there's right on top of him, and he like denied him twice, and you're like, whoa, all right, so. But this is where it comes down to for them, like their goaltending and their defense are going to have to be on point. And I think on Saturday, I don't think that their defense did enough in that third period. And it comes back. The defense says, "Well, we only gave up 2 goals. We should win that game." The defense and goaltending says we only gave up 2. We should win that game. They're totally right. That game is lost in the second period. They outshoot Philly 16-3, and they get nothing out of it.
Yeah, that's where you could say Vladar sort of stole them a win there.
Yeah, and with Vladar, it's really interesting because like he's such a big goaltender, right? And he's kind of really worked on a lot of stuff that was his problem in Boston, where like he was big, but it was like really raw. Like you're kind of seeing how he competes now and how he settles things down, and he's becoming a really good goalie in Philadelphia. He's looking like the number 1 goalie there. He still has his moments, right, where he has his games where you're like, all right, a little leaky there, but just when he's on his game, the dude is 6'5". And there's just not a lot of net to shoot at with a guy like that. And so him being able to sort of erase like the little pockets of trouble that he had previously, like it makes him a dangerous guy. I still think it was a good trade. I still think it was a really good trade, getting a 3rd-round pick for a guy who at that point had played like 7 NHL games and you didn't know what he was.
And I think we're seeing now Brandon Bussey, the way he's playing, that like their development program for goalies, I think definitely works. You see guys pan out long term. And they can't just keep everybody that they draft and develop at goalie. So
why not?
I'm okay with building a pipeline there and trading guys when the situation calls for it. But that's beside the point. That second goal I hated. David Pasternak's out there directing traffic in the defensive zone. He directs Minton to go down there and take care of the pass along the half boards. Minton can't disrupt the pass, and then Pastrnak just sort of loses Drysdale, and everybody loses Drysdale because he gets the puck. He gets the pass and just wide open from the high slot down to the slot. And so I get it. Like, I don't want to put it all on Pastrnak, but if you're going to be out there directing traffic, you kind of got to make sure you maintain the lanes and don't completely lose a guy. And then Swayman, the replay on ESPN showed that Swayman had a completely clean look at it. And so I would have liked a bailout save there.
Yeah.
Complete team breakdown on that goal. And I get it. Like the second period where they couldn't finish sort of, set the game in the wrong direction for them. But that second goal I thought was just a total killer.
Yeah, it was. I think it's a 3-man breakdown there. I think you have Minton, you have Pastrnak, and then you have Zadorov. I think they're maybe expecting him to kind of step up a little bit and cut off that shooting lane. Doesn't happen, obviously, but yeah, I have a hard time. I have a hard time blaming a goaltender when you muster 1 goal. So what's the expectation? A shutout? And I know you're not saying that, but like it's like they had their chances, they didn't capitalize. They had more than enough to take it out of their goaltender's hands, and they didn't do it. And so I understand, like especially on the heels of the Olympics, him not playing on Thursday, which I didn't like. We can get to later. And Korpisalo playing well right now. It's going to highlight, when he doesn't show up. But I just feel like in that kind of game, in that kind of moment, it's Philadelphia. You should put 3 goals on them. And I know I just said Vladar's been playing well, but like you can still put 3 goals on them. And you mentioned Pastrnak. That's the biggest reason why they lost yesterday. He did not have a good game. He did not have it. He was not up to his standard, especially against Philadelphia. He's been really good against Philly in his career. Just did not have a good game yesterday. He was off timing-wise, shot-wise. Everything just felt off for him.
Yeah.
And then the defensive thing. I mean, he almost gave that game away. They had a chance before the empty netter. He had an absolutely horrible pass that he got bailed out by Pavel Zacha knocking it down, but it was just a week past no man's land. So,
and the empty netter was him just sort of giving it up in that end of the ice, and that was pretty much the game.
Yeah, and so he didn't have a good game. I understand. I understand the box score, 14 on 16 or 14 saves on 16 shots for Jeremy Swayman. It's not going to look great, but I think he was not on their list of problems in that game. I feel like your power play was not effective. You weren't generating quality second chance looks, in my opinion. And that there were two moments there where they have one face-off on the left and they win it and they do nothing with it. And then they win another face-off in the O-zone on the right side and they do nothing with it. Like, it's situational hockey that they got to get better at, and especially on the road. They've been great at home. They stink on the road. They got to win their road games. They have, I believe, 5 of their final 7 games a year on the road. You got to snap out of this road malaise. Like it happens against good teams and bad teams. That is where they struggle, is on the road. And if they can't fix that and they can't key in on situational hockey on the road, they might slip out of the playoff race because they have a lot of key road games down the stretch.
617-779-0985. We're off and running. We're going to keep talking Bruins here, but we're going to take a quick break. Matt Dolloff and Ty Anderson on 98.5 The Sports Hub.
Boston's home for sports. 98.
pipe by Dvorak. Turned away as well. Bruins get the clear.
You know what's happening right now, right, Matt?
What's that?
George is playing Descendants because he's going to be on the morning show quite a bit next few weeks.
Making Fred happy.
Making Fred happy right away. That's what we're doing here.
I'm sorry to Fred, but him being annoyed by George just makes me laugh. It makes me chuckle. Just keep doing you, George, and we'll get endless entertainment out of it.
Yeah, he's not going to get annoyed now, and now he's playing Descendants. I mean, again,
he's buttering him up.
Yeah.
It's going to look like Kramer in that one episode by the end of the day. All right, so we're back. You just heard a couple good saves from Swayman in that game yesterday. And yeah, look, he had a great start to the game, which kind of makes it bizarre that felt like he wasn't quite ready to go for that game, and it felt like defensively they weren't ready to go, which you touched on in that first break. Mm-hmm. We've been talking about this a little bit off the air, Ty. That gold medal celebration for Team USA got dragged out a little bit. And it took a little while for Swayman to get back here. Do you think maybe that sort of contributed to some of the issues yesterday where they don't have everybody back and they're calling up Michael DiPietro, sending him down, and like they're doing all these gymnastics just to have guys on the ice to get ready for the game? Mm-hmm. Like, do you think it hurt the Bruins just in that game and, maybe coming back from the break that they didn't have a full lineup and they didn't have Swayman out there just to get ready?
Yeah, I don't want to say that like full on hurt them, but it should annoy you. I think I'm not upset if I'm a Bruins fan. I'm not upset about how Swayman played yesterday. I'm more upset with the situation that was created this week in terms of you're not ready to go. You come back late. I look at what happened with Jake Ottinger goes right back to Dallas. He doesn't go for the ceremony, the State of the Union. He said, no, he's like, I've been away for a while. I got to get back. We got a big run ahead of us here. It's very important for me to get back in town. Kyle Connor goes back to Winnipeg. The Jets are out of the playoff race right now. They're really not in it. He says, I got to get back here. It's important. We got a big run. I got to be here. Brock Nelson on the NHL Best Colorado Avalanche says, I've been gone from my family for a long time. And getting back to what's important here, Stanley Cup is what I got to focus on. Jake Gensel goes back to Tampa. Tampa, the hottest team in the league. I want to get back to Tampa. We're doing something good down there. Why, get back home. Get back to Boston.
Why is there no urgency for him to get back here for the reasons he stayed? Like, I want to come back and win a Stanley Cup now.
Yeah.
The gold medal's great that he barely had anything to do with, but now I want to go win a Stanley Cup, and I will actually be a big reason for that if they do.
And
so, where is the urgency there? That is the sort of frustrating thing about Swayman is that his personality, I get it, he's a little carefree, it seems, and that might lend itself to, playing well in a big game where the pressure doesn't get to you in that regard, where it's like he doesn't care. At the same time, you get these things where it's like, I'll get back when I can. The lack of urgency is not something that mixes well with the people of Boston. Like, you and I are sitting here like, get back here. Let's get with the program here.
Yeah, and you said program. That's the key word here. Marco Sturm is building a program. It's a blizzard on Monday. It's absolutely pouring snow from the sky. The wind is whipping you in the face. You're having a bad time. You know what Marco did that day? He said, hey, I want to practice today. And they were like, no, we can't practice today. He's like, no, I want to practice today. They didn't practice, but he wanted to. He understands how important these practices are because they're not going to get a lot of them. They got 22 games in 45 days, right? Something crazy like that happening right now. They're not going to have a lot of practice time. They're going to have a lot of mandated days off because of their schedule. He understands the importance of practice. And if you get guys that aren't going to practice and they're the driving force of your team to a certain degree, he's going to get a little pissed off. And I can't blame him there. I found this quote after Thursday's game against Columbus to be a little telling, in my opinion. This is Marco Sturm after Thursday's game. Korpisalo was unbelievable today. I'm glad he came back right away from the Olympics and didn't waste any time, and he wanted to be in practice. I thought the last 2 days were very important for him just to be back on the ice and having a real practice again. He was great. It's not a direct shot, but it kind of feels like he gets it. he gets how important it is that we have to practice and we have to be back on the ice here. You know, and so I don't think that Marco is outright. I think he understood why Swayman and McAvoy were there. It's a great honor. But I think he's kind of like, all right, other guys came back home. Can you come back home now? Do you have to be there for the State of the Union and fly back to Boston at 4 a.m. and then, come to the rink and be like, I want to practice? And it's like, all right, well, we're not going to put you through any real reps right now because you arrived 5 hours ago.
Right, you're not going to get extradited from D.C.
Yeah,
for not showing up to that and coming back and getting to your actual job.
Exactly. And so I feel like Marco Sturm understood why they did that, but I think he was a little bothered by it. And here's the thing. McAvoy plays on Thursday. McAvoy, who actually played in the gold medal game and wasn't wearing a suit for it as the third goaltender, actually played in the game and then got back in time to play in Thursday's game against the Columbus Blue Jackets and had a good game. It's important to be here. And I feel like that's sort of what Marco Sturm is trying to impress upon his guys. And if your third highest player is sort of like, well, I'm going to arrive back and, give me the time I need. And then your first game back is not ideal. Everyone's going to be a little annoyed, right? And so I don't blame him for Saturday's game. But to your point, did he make that one extra save, that mental and physical preparation that you would need in that game? You could argue no. But I do think that Marco was more annoyed by him not being here for the start of practice ahead of what's a very important stretch here for the Boston Bruins, where that game yesterday, if they win that game, Philadelphia is buried. Now Philly has a little bit of life here. They think they might be in it. They're 6 points out of a playoff spot right now. I don't know if they're actually in it. They're kind of like how the Bruins were a year ago, where deadline week's approaching, you're only 5 points out, you're like, we're in it. And then you're like, you're actually not really in it. But this is an important stretch, right? So you had Columbus on Thursday, the hottest team in the league and the team right behind you for the wild card, right? Then you have Philly. You have Pittsburgh without Crosby on Tuesday, and then you have Nashville. This is a pocket where the Bruins should get 7 points. 6 at the very least, right? You're 500 right now through those 2 games. Not what you need given how it intensifies down the stretch.
617-779-0985 if you want to call in and talk some Bruins. We got Luke in the car leading us off, talking about Swayman. What's up, Luke?
Yeah, Swayman's been so frustrating, and it seems like it started ever since we gave him that deal, and it's like he let his guard down since that time. He's been so streaky ever since then, and it's like Korpisalo's played fine, and it's like it's almost like we could get the same out of Korpisalo as we gotten out of Swayman over the last year, and we're paying Swayman whatever it is. I don't know the number, but it's just so frustrating the way he's acted too. It's like he's said the wrong things every now and then. It's just frustrating. The guy doesn't have the right mindset, I don't think, right now. I don't know why, but he should be thanking the Bruins for the deal we gave him. That's all.
All right, thanks, Luke. Yeah, look, I'm at the point where Swayman has been too inconsistent over the last year and a half that he's just not worth that contract. I was willing to see how he played after they gave him the contract, and he just hasn't lived up to it. And I think this whole thing about his attitude and the carefree, I'll get back when I can. Meanwhile, all his teammates, including his one teammate on America that actually played throughout that tournament, and by the way, saved the game in the third period in the gold medal game. He's back. He's playing. It's like, what's your deal, Sway? And it's like if someone comes to them at the trade deadline and they're willing to take that contract off their hands, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that idea. I don't want to go as far. I don't go so far in the other direction where it's like, put my dad out there. He can play goal. No, I think you need a good starting goalie. I just don't think it needs to be Swayman in particular, and it doesn't have to be necessarily one of the highest paid guys in the league on a long-term deal. We talked about it a little bit last break where their development at goaltender is so good. These guys are starting to be sprinkled around the league and looking like good starting NHL goaltenders. Why can't they just lean on that a little bit? I don't understand why they would insist upon Swayman being the guy, especially with the way it's gone the last year and a half. That's just my thought on that.
Let's talk about Luke's comment, though, right? He has been streaky. He has been up and down.
Yeah,
and
inconsistent,
so what you've seen this year, though, out of him has been really strong pockets of play, and then games where you go, oh, what's going on here? Or a week where you go, what's going on here?
Yeah, he undoes a lot of good with some of these games.
The reason why I'm not ready to move on from him and why the Bruins are not ready to move on from him is that you still have the memory of 2024 when he was a stud in the playoffs. And it's almost akin to Jordan Binnington, where Binnington will have these pretty crappy regular seasons, but then you look at him in big moments and you're like, I kind of trust him in big moments, right? And look at Swayman last year in the Worlds, right? It's different than the Olympics, I know, but in the Worlds, he was 7-0 with a 940 in a gold medal game shutout, overtime 1-0 win by Team USA over Switzerland. And again, I know it's Worlds, I know it's not the Olympics, and he didn't have a great Olympic showing, but this is sort of like a question. This is sort of the question, right? Like, you believe in what they're doing. You believe in what he could be for your team, right? Since the break. So on the year, Swayman is top 5 in goals saved above expected. So, which means he's been getting shelled and been making a lot of key saves.
Yep.
Since coming out of the break, goals saved above average here. Swayman's 6th in the NHL. Right? You wouldn't think that, though, right? You wouldn't think that. High danger save percentage among goalies who've played at least 300 minutes. Swayman is 3rd at 914. The two guys better than him, Anton Forsberg, and number 1, if you had to guess who is number 1.
Binnington?
Jonas Korpisalo, 920.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So they're getting really good goaltending right now. It's just, you want them pushing each other, but I think for the Bruins, the confidence in Swayman is still comes back to that 2024 run when he was nails. And that's why they picked him over Ullmark, because he had better postseason numbers than Linus Ullmark did during Linus's time as the starting goaltender for the Boston Bruins in the playoffs.
Now, look, I get he's not... You can't expect anyone to play like he did in that series throughout an entire season. Like, you're going to have bumps in the road. I just think we need to get more consistency out of him, and he's got to eliminate, if not severely limit, the duds going forward. 617-779-0985. We're going to continue this conversation, but take a quick break here. Matt Dolloff and Ty Anderson on 98.5 The Sports Hub.
Boston's home for sports. 98.5 The Celtics, the Patriots, the Sox, the Revs, and you. We're Boston's home for sports. 98.5 The Sports Hub.
He came back right away, from the Olympics right away. Didn't waste any time or beat practice. I thought that the last 2 days was very important for him just to be, back on the ice and having a real practice again. He was great.
Sports Hub, Matt Dolloff and Ty Anderson with you until 5 o'clock. We're talking Bruins here to start the show. If you want to call in, give your thoughts on that, 617-779-0985. We've been talking about the goaltending, Ty. We talked about it last break, how Swayman might be playing better than it seems. Korpisalo certainly playing better than it seems. And Korpisalo, I've been really happy with overall. Because I'm not expecting him to play like a number one goalie or your starting goalie or anything like that. I think he's playing better than expected, and based on that Sturm comment, Sturm's happy with the whole attitude thing, coming back on time and getting with the program, and I feel like Swayman's coming up short in that department, and so I kind of put more weight into the human stuff than the analytics stuff. That's just sort of how I approach things as a sports fan. I'm not totally anti-analytics, but if you listen to that comment from Sturm, I think it's clear he's not happy, and the teammates aren't fully happy with Swayman at this moment. And then if someone would reply to me like, well, he's saved the most goals above expected. What do you want from him? It's like, all right, that's not going to do it for me, brother. I'm going to need a little bit better than that. I'm going to need everything to be going fine behind the scenes as well. And so it just doesn't feel like they've gotten totally to the level they need to be in terms of everything sort of being on the same page behind the scenes. Swayman can sort of undo that if he starts playing better. I mean, I don't want to put too much on it from that game yesterday, but if he sort of gets on a hot streak, especially right now in this slate of games that you laid out for them, is kind of a critical slate of games if the Bruins want to stay in the playoffs as they are today. So Swayman can do a lot of good for himself and for the team if he sort of steps up his game in this upcoming stretch here.
Yeah, I feel like, I don't think that you should I don't think you should live or die with analytics. I do think they can help paint a picture in terms of defensive coverage that you might not see or you might not be able to follow super closely just because of how the league trends are always evolving, right? And why I like these kind of stats is that they track, where goals are coming from now, right? It used to be, okay, just get here, and this is where a lot of goals are being scored. They will recalibrate a lot of what they consider a high danger look so that it's always accurate versus perhaps an antiquated or outdated model. And so I like them for that reason. But I do feel like, it does show the workload, right? And the Bruins as a team have allowed a lot of really dangerous looks. Now, they've gotten better, right? They've gotten better. They had that game in December, I think it was Winnipeg, where you really couldn't count one really high danger look by the Jets. You're like, wow, yeah. You know what? That's a pretty good showing.
Yesterday, though, was definitely one of those games, especially 5-on-5.
What, were they letting up too much?
High danger chances were 20-10 Flyers or something like that.
Yeah, they were getting doubled up for a while. I never saw the final counts, but it was pretty bad for a while. That first period was where it was really bad, right? And so and then in the third period, they take their foot off the gas. I think they're deflated after that disallowed goal, and then it kind of burns them right away. You're like, it's the worst. That's the worst kind of 1-2, where it's goal off the board and then a goal for Philly right away. You're like, yeah, feels like a 2-goal swing right there.
This is sort of off the beaten path a little bit for this topic, but I feel like losing the faceoffs was a big problem for them. When it got bad on defense, it was because they lost the faceoff. When they won the faceoff in the defensive zone, it felt like they were sort of pinpoint with everybody getting to the right spot and getting the breakout going. I think that's a big reason why they controlled that game for the first couple periods. But then once they lose the faceoff, it feels like everything sort of falls apart for them. Maybe that's a thing that Sturm needs to figure out. Or what's our plan if we don't win the faceoff here? Well, it feels like they have everything down in terms of winning the faceoff and getting the puck out of there. But when they lose the draw, it feels like everything just sort of starts tumbling in the wrong direction for him.
Well, we can talk. I want to talk more about the centers and that in a hot minute. Just kind of wrap up the goaltending talk though.
Yes.
You mentioned like you're okay with trading Swayman, or potentially okay if like the return is there. Here's what I would say. There's a reason why they haven't given Michael DiPietro the reins. He's tiny. He is not a big goaltender. And when you sit here and you say, well, look at Bussy. Bussy's big. You say, look at Vladar. Vladar's big. Korpisalo, big. Linus Ullmark, big.
Tall.
Michael DiPietro is like 5'10", probably.
Yeah.
He's listed at 6'1". He ain't 6'1", let me tell you.
You can see it. Like I've only really seen him up close at camp. But like I look at him, it's like, well, he's a solid, technically sound goaltender. He knows what he's doing there. But then he's like barely above the crossbar.
Right. And so that's a big reason why I think that there's not that appetite to trade Swayman as much as like people may think, right? Because I think people are like, well, no, your system, your development is good enough that you can get by. And you're like, yeah, but what if you can't, right? And what if like you're putting a kid here that like you can coach him up, right? But he's going to have these physical limitations that are going to make it a shooting gallery, and he might not have the frame to kind of withstand that, right? And that's why I bring up the expected goals and whatnot, because like some guys, they have the frame and the natural ability because of just how they move to be able to keep that at bay, right? So for us, frustrating as Swayman has been, and he has been at times this year, it's like he still has a 6'3" body and the mechanics to like kind of keep you out of danger a lot of nights. Whereas Michael DiPietro might give you everything he has, but he's just too small. He's just too
right.
There's only 2 goaltenders in the NHL that are under 6 feet tall. And again, I know they list him at 6'1". I'm telling you, he's not 6'1". He's a few inches taller than me. I'm not a tall person, and so it's like that's something that I think is worth noting here when it comes to the goaltending picture as a whole and why they haven't given DiPietro a greater look, or like why they're not going to trade Korpisalo or why they're not going to trade Swayman. I think with Korpisalo, and you kind of touched on it out of the gate, I think he was damn close to getting waived. If they don't have the holiday break in December when it happens, possibility that he would get waived.
Waived in the holiday break, not before the season.
Yeah, because there's roster freeze. You can't do anything during the roster freeze. So
but you mean like during the season they were going to waive him?
Yeah, it was getting close.
Wow.
I think that December 20th, the same night. I think it was the same night as the Pats Ravens game. So whatever day that was, date wise.
That was late November or early December. Yeah,
I think it was like December. I thought it was like December 20th. I don't know why I thought it was like late.
Oh no, yeah, it was like mid December. Yeah.
That game was horrible, and they had a poll. If you remember, that was the second leg of a back-to-back for the Boston Bruins. They started Swayman the night before, and we all asked why, because it was the end of like a 4-6 for them, and Swayman had played all 4 of the 6. And Sturm said, "Oh, he gives us the best chance to win." And you're like, that's a curious answer. And the next night he has to play Korpisalo because it's a 5-6, or 5-7, or 5-8. You're not going to play him again. Yeah. And they has to pull Korpisalo and put Swayman in, and they were like, "We can't do this. This is not sustainable. We can't do this." And if they don't have the break, 2 days later, they may have waived Korpisalo, because if you remember, Anton Hudobin got waived in 16-17 because it hit a point where they're like, we can't trust him, and we're running our starter into the ground, so we got to do something here. They end up waiving Hudobin. Hudobin goes on a tear in Providence, and then they bring up Zane McIntyre. Zane McIntyre can't take the job away from Hudobin. They fire Claude. They bring up Hudobin, and Hudobin's good again. I thought we were going to see something kind of like that, but it didn't happen. And then out of the break, Korpisalo's been great for them. He's been awesome. One of the best goalies in the NHL since the Christmas break.
617-779-0985. Chris in Chicago on the Bruins. Go ahead, Chris.
Hey, Ty, did you just mention that you were going to give the Bruins a chance to develop someone? You do realize that this team rarely develops anybody. And I think in the overall conversation that you guys do realize that this is still kind of a teardown. And if we're not blowing players out, good players, in the next couple of weeks to get better for the future, I'm not sure what we're doing here. But I just wanted to make sure that you guys knew, I wanted just to make sure with Ty that he was serious when he said that you would give the Bruins a chance to develop players. They just don't really develop players very well.
Well,
Thanks, Chris.
They develop goaltenders.
He might have been talking about what I said. I just said goaltenders. I feel like they've done a good job. I think clearly they've had some issues developing forwards. I wasn't saying the whole organization. I think goalie Bob and their drafting and developing at goalie has been good. I mean, based on the amount of guys that are playing in the league.
And Mike Dunham, who works down in Providence with their Providence goaltenders, has done a really good job too. He's probably the heir apparent to Bob Essenza. When Bob Essenza finally retires, whenever that is, it's probably going to be Mike Dunham who takes over. Mike Dunham, you remember from his career, played in Nashville, played a few other stops as well, but he's had a really good hand in developing their goalies at the minor league level. Yeah, no, I think their forward development has been pretty garbage. I think it's been better.
Yeah,
it's been better of late because it had to be better. Like I talked to player personnel people from other teams about the Bruins and their drafting and what they've done, and sort of the conversation that I've had with them has come back to, the Bruins improved their development because they had to. They realized that they had to get better at that. That teams were saying to them that you got nothing. You're not developing skill guys enough at the rate you need to. It was eye-opening for them during that hiring process before hiring Marco Sturm, where guys were saying, you got nothing in the pipeline coming. Like I'm not impressed with what you have. I'm not impressed with what you've done. I'm not impressed with how you developed younger players, and I don't see what I can work with here. Right? And then they go to the draft and they say, skill. We don't care about your bloodline. We don't care about your uncle played for the Milwaukee Admirals for 10 years, so that means you're going to be a good pro too. No, they don't care about that. They want to develop the best players to win hockey games. And so I think that has changed. You're going to have to wait and see how it all develops. I think how they develop James Higgins is going to be the ultimate litmus test in terms of what do you do with him? Do you jerk him around, or do you put him where he should be playing?
Excuse me?
I feel like Minton and Husadinov are examples of development because they had to, right? And they had to be patient, and they had to deal with the bumps and the bruises, and they still are. And there's moments where they peel back on it. Like the game in Florida, Sturm peels back on Minton because he doesn't have it tonight. I can't keep putting him out there. He's making mistakes, and we're not punishing him, but he doesn't have it tonight. We got to reel him back. They've done a good job of that, so they got to keep doing that.
No, I think they're going to trade all their first-round picks for a guy that knows all the best bars in Scituate and Hyannisport and Wellfleet, all those types of things. I think that's the best course of action there. 617-779-0985. That's a good time to transition to some more trade deadline talk, right? Mm-hmm. NHL trade deadline coming up. We touched on the possibility of maybe trading a goalie, but there's all kinds of things they could do. We touched on it on the Sports Hub Underground, the most recent episode, that they kind of got all options on the table. And I'm kind of with the last caller on I don't want them, buying. I kind of would rather they do a soft sell kind of thing. But there's all kinds of options on the table, and we're gonna get into more of those. But we're gonna take a quick break here, and we'll come right back, talk more Bruins. Matt Dolloff and Ty Anderson on 98.5 The Sports Hub.
Boston's home for sports. 98.5 No matter what game, it all happens here. 98.5 The Sports Hub.
.98.5 The Sports Hub. Matt Dolloff and Ty Anderson here. It's a Sports Hub Underground takeover from 2 to 5. Where we got you from now 2:53 until 5 p.m. on 98.5 The Sports Hub. Ty, do you ever have, dreams the night before? You got a big event coming, or you got to be somewhere to travel, or you got a show, presentation, and the dream is just like everything that is possibly going to happen that is awful is about to happen to you. That sort of dream?
No, and I'm only going to say this because I have to make light of this. You and my girlfriend both suffer from like extreme anxiety.
Yes.
I don't know this feeling at all.
Interesting.
I have never experienced this feeling. It's very weird, and I feel like a jerk because people will tell me things, and I'm like, that must suck. But I don't know what that feeling is.
Well, I got to get this off my chest. I had a dream that. Our show was not here. We're doing the show. The show's not here, by the way, though. It's at the Super Bowl. So it's at some big, generic convention center. Probably my memories from going to the Super Bowl a couple of years, coming back there. The table that we sat on to do the show was this giant round table type thing, like a giant conference room table. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't just us. It was everybody at the Sports Hub taking a seat. It was like 18 microphones or whatever. And we're all going around the table, taking turns on who's going to drive the next segment. And I'm just coming around the table. Obviously, Felger's right next to me. He's like, "Good luck, Dolloff." It's like I can't do this. And then, of course, once the segment's about to start, that's when that phase of the dream is over. And then, of course, you can't have that kind of dream without following it up with dreaming that you're late for the show.
Oh, yeah.
I had a dream that I was, 2 hours late for the show, and the phone's ringing my ear off, and I'm running in there. And then, of course, I wake up when the show's about to start. Like, obviously, once the good, comfortable, once you're about to have comfort, that's when the dream ends.
Yeah.
You only dream the bad parts. That's what happens when you got crippling anxiety. I'm sure your girlfriend is listening to this right now. It's like, oh, my God, that happens to me all the time.
So I during the last snowstorm, I left my car in the garage here because I live in the city and there was a parking ban and couldn't find street parking and all that. So I was like, all right, I'm just going to leave my car here for a couple days. Plus I was going to Florida, so I didn't want to potentially have my car on the street and I'm down in Florida and, it gets towed, whatever. So I was almost late to the hockey show because I had to take an Uber to get to the studio because I didn't have my car was here. I didn't have my car with me. And I hit the point where I had to say to the Uber driver, and I felt so bad about this. I was like, hey, next yellow, can we try to make it? Because he would get a yellow, and he would, immediately, slam on the brakes. And I was like,
right.
I have to be in the building by, 8:58. And he was like, oh, yeah. But I felt like such a jerk about it because I was like, Ubers, I got to be nice because, it's their car. They're being cool.
Yeah.
They don't got to do this.
You can't be coming up to a yellow light and then be in the backseat like, go.
Right. But I had to be like, hey, man. So next time this happens, because you know how this road is in Waltham, where you hit one light, you hit them all. I was next time it's kind of what? Can we try to make it? I was like, I'm running out of daylight here, unfortunately. And he's like, oh yeah, no thing. I don't know. Maybe I have that. Not anxiety, but I'm like, I got to be nicest person because they could just turn around and just shoot me and I'd be dead.
Well, that's just called having empathy for your fellow
okay,
human.
cool. So that's what that is then.
Yeah, you are an empathetic human. I think that's what that says. Potential off topic, if anyone wants to call in and tell us, what kind of crazy recurring dreams they have, that's a pretty good one. The worst one that I have from time to time is I have a dream that I'm back in, high school, maybe college, but usually high school, and I just haven't shown up all semester. I'm about to fail the class. I'm about to fail out of school. And my life is just about to go downhill. And then finally I wake up and I was like, well, thank God that wasn't real. That's the scary part is when a dream feels real and then you wake up, it's like, well, of course that's not happening. I don't know why that sort of thing comes up. But I think it's pretty common that people dream that they're about to miss their flight and things like that. And it's obviously right before a flight. Mm-hmm. That is probably a sign of anxiety deep down in there. But just to move back to the Bruins topic, we're going to set the table for the next hour here. We're going to take a quick break in a couple minutes. But I like that they have a lot of different options that they can do. They have multiple first-round. They have 4 first-round picks over the next couple of years. They have all their second-round picks, and so if they want to trade a first-round pick, they can. I'd rather they not trade first-round picks unless we're talking about getting a true superstar franchise-changing type of player, and I just don't see that as totally realistic. But to circle back to the goaltending conversation, I said if someone's willing to take that Swayman contract, I'm okay with moving on from him and figuring out the goalie position moving forward. You also mentioned Jonas Korpisalo. If someone's willing to take him, like I'm in on that as well. This is a guy that almost got waived, and like don't dump him for nothing. But if Korpisalo steps up and plays well over the next, if he gets a start in here and he has another good game, maybe there is value there because he's only making $3 million. If someone comes in and says, he can be our 1A, or he can make a difference for us at the behind our starter, or step up and be our starter in a pinch. Like if someone has interest in Korpisalo, like I'm just interested in any kind of goaltending trade because I just feel like they're spending too much money at that spot and they have too many needs elsewhere in the lineup. And just with the way they can develop goalies and coach them up, I feel like they can sort of figure that out. And so that's why I'd be in on any kind of goaltending trade personally.
Yeah, I think the Korpisalo trade might be more of an off-season trade just because of what we're talking about here, what we have been talking about this first hour with the uncertainty with Swayman. And if Korpisalo gets hot, and that remains the case between now and the playoffs, and you go down in a series 2-1 or 2-0, and you're like, hey, we need a spark here. Our backup's been playing well for a few months now. Let's go to him. You've seen it happen before, right? You saw Edmonton go back and forth, snip, snap, snip, snap. Back to Skinner and Picard and who else they've had in their grasp for a while now. Same thing with Florida. That Florida team that beat the Bruins. You remember that began with Alex Lyon in net for the Panthers, not Sergei Bobrovsky, right? So like crazy things can happen, and I feel like the goaltending trade. I feel like they might say we can probably get something better for Korpisalo, or maybe, let him, I don't want to say pick a destination, but be like, hey, man, where do you want to go? Because he does have trade protection, right? And you can maybe facilitate a better trade for him in the offseason if that is the case, or you just keep him. I don't know. I mean, it's a really unique spot, but like it's worth noting they re-signed DiPietro to a 2-year deal. I don't think he's doing that if he doesn't have an idea that he's going to have a legit chance to be the backup at some point in life of that contract, right? And so we'll see what happens there. But no, it's. I want to talk about the deadline on the other side here because there's a lot we got to get to with it, and there's a lot that the Bruins could do and what they should do, and we can talk about that, I think. But goaltending, like that could be an option. I think it's more of a summertime thing, but there's a lot of options they have currently open.
617-779-0985. You want to call in and talk some hockey? Any topic you want. We touched on a lot of topics as far as the hockey team and this season, but we are going to get into more trade deadline stuff going forward. But first, we're going to take a quick check of the headlines here with Ty, and then we're going to come right back. Matt Dolloff and Ty Anderson on 98.5 The Sports Hub.
From the Town Fair Times and News. Dutcher and Hardy. Owen Beetle. Felger and Mass. The Bruins. The Celtics. The Pats. The Revolution. This is Boston's home for sports. WBC FM at HD Boston. 98.5 The Sports Hub. A Beasley Media Group station. Sports Hub headlines. Presented by Celsius Energy Drinks.
The Bruins' 8-game point streak came to an end Saturday with a 3-1 loss to the Flyers down in Philly. Bruins defenseman Charlie McAvoy had Boston's only goal of the day, while Jeremy Swayman allowed 2 goals on 16 shots. The Bruins will get back to work Tuesday when they host the Penguins at TD Garden. By the way, Bruins general manager Don Sweeney will speak with the media following Monday's practice, in case you want some pre-deadline thoughts as to what the Boston Bruins could and maybe will do before Friday's trade deadline. The Celtics, meanwhile, will look to keep it rolling tonight when they host the 76ers at TD Garden. This, of course, was the game notably moved to primetime a few weeks ago, which sparked theories that Jason Tatum could return tonight. That will not happen, however, as the C's ruled him out last night, so the wait continues. 98.5 The Sports will have you covered the whole way for that game. Pregame with Sean Silver begins after us, and then Sean Grandy and Cedric Max will have the call beginning at 7:30. And according to Ian Rappaport, Cardinals quarterback Kyler Murray is likely to be released by the Cardinals, barring a last-minute trade. Bad news for short quarterbacks everywhere. Sports Hub headlines are brought to you by Valvoline. Enjoy quick and convenient vehicle maintenance this month. Visit NewEnglandOilChange.com. 15% off your drive-thru oil change at Valvoline Instant Oil Change, the official oil change of busy people. I am Ty Anderson. Next, checking the headlines in an hour.
This is what happens when analysts take over the game, take over the sport.
This is where you talk sports.
It happens all the time.
The Sports Hub. Boston sports, yeah, we got that covered. 98.5 The Sports Hub.
If you're listening to me, yo, you underground.
.98.5 The Sports Hub. Matt Dolloff and Ty Anderson with you until 5 o'clock. Want to call in and talk some hockey? We started hockey in the first hour. We're going to continue it. 617-779-0985. Trade deadline coming up on Friday, right, Ty?
Yeah, Friday, 3 p.m. Bruins have 2 more games between now and then. This is where it starts to kind of heat up. That Monday is when you start seeing guys being held out of the lineup, and the rumors start to go a little crazy. Bruins have been linked to a lot of guys. I can tell you what they're looking for. I can tell you what they like. The biggest guy on the market right now, and it's now gained traction from Elliot Friedman, which is kind of like gaining traction with Adam Schefter. It's like if he's talking about it, something's kind of happening.
Yeah, it's brewing.
Is Robert Thomas in St. Louis, who first line center, had 81 or 82 points a year ago, point per game guy. Signed to a long-term deal, prime his career, 28 years old. Could be on the outs in St. Louis. The Bruins, I can tell you, speaking to people around the league, the Bruins love this guy. I don't know if they have the goods to pull it off because St. Louis is driving a really hard bargain right now. Talked to someone a few weeks ago about the asking price for a guy like him if he's really available. I was told 4 pieces. I was told 2 first-round picks and 2 younger players that they think can be legit high-impact players who are 23 or younger. That's what I was told back then. So if you're the Bruins, you're talking 2 first-round picks, Dean Letourneau, and Will Zellers, perhaps. I don't know what else you would put in there, but it's an awful lot, right? It's an awful lot for a player who would address a legitimate need for you, right? But are you there yet? Are you there to make that kind of trade yet? That's the big question.
To me, the answer to that question is no. But first, I'll say Robert Thomas is the kind of player that you win a Stanley Cup with. The way he can score a point per game and give you that two-way game. Good, smart, instinctive player. He can be your number 1 center, your number 1 two-way center, if he's got a team around him. This is why I say no to a trade like that. This is a trade that should be a team that needs that one piece. That's that one piece away, and they've done enough drafting and developing, and they've built up their lineup. They have all the other pieces in place. Let's get this guy and put us over the top. The Bruins, if they make that deal, they're undoing all this draft, not all of it, but a lot of the drafting and developing they've been doing the last few years, and a lot of the progress they made just selling off pieces and replenishing their draft assets last year. You're going to undo all that for a guy that, yes, he's a very good player. He's not going to carry you to the playoffs, and you're not going to win a Stanley Cup with Robert Thomas over the next couple of years. I feel like you still need things to build on there, and it's going to be a lot harder to do if you're giving up 2 first-round picks. A guy like Dean Letourneau, who looks like he's made a lot of progress this year at BC, he could be in the NHL in the next year or 2. Like, I don't know why they would undo all that progress for this one guy who, again, is a very good player, but I feel like that move is more like if you need to get put over the top, you're at the, like, if this is 2023 and they need that one last center and they bring in Robert Thomas for a deal like that, completely makes sense to me. Mm-hmm. All in kind of year. That's an all-in kind of move for a team that is not close to being able to go all in yet.
What if? So let me just be devil's advocate for a second here. We would agree, however, that they need to add another core piece up front. Like we would probably agree with that, right? That who are their core pieces up front right now? It's Pastrnak, Geeky, Minton is looking like one, right? And then you kind of look at Hagens, Letourneau, hopefully. And so you look at it long term and you're like, they do need another piece there, right? Another guy that you can go, oh, hell yeah, that guy's definitely part of what you're cooking up right now.
But why can't they get that with one of their 4 first-round picks this year?
They could.
And they got James Hagens, possibly could be in the NHL this year.
But then you're looking at how far are they away, right? And does that match up with what you're doing? Now, where I push back on people is because people say, well, Pastrnak's turning 30. Yeah, and he's shown really little signs of slowing down. Like, he's still a really good player, right? But, like, that's what the Bruins will tell you. The Bruins will say, well, we want a guy to help us out now so that our core players don't age out by the time that these picks that you're talking about are ready to go.
So that's where I say, like, help us out now versus win now.
Right.
Like, this is a win now kind of move if they make that big of a trade. And I don't disagree. They need another core piece. They need to start adding core players. But I just feel like giving up like all your assets that give you the potential to do that for one guy, and then all of a sudden now you have to start over at the draft. You got to sell other pieces to replenish your draft picks again for a second year in a row. Like, I get it. They need to add a core guy. I just don't think now is the time to do it. That's a win now kind of move. I don't get it if they feel like if they think they're in win now mode. I don't understand that. But you tell me, like, you know better than me. What kind of mode do you think they're in right now?
I think that they think that they are closer, and I feel like these picks are kind of burning a hole in their pocket to a certain degree. I think they want to use two of them, but I think they would also be down to trade two of them. I do feel like they look at where they are and they like their future, right? And it's about adding a guy right now so that they can still be competitive now while waiting for Higgins and waiting for Letourneau. But this is the problem, right? This is the problem with where you are in terms of, like, you want to appease both masters, and that's hard. It's just really hard to do that, right? That you want to have your good future, but you want to compete now. It's like, well, you can't do that unless you have a full teardown, like an Arizona level teardown where you have 8 top 60 picks over the next 2 drafts. It's hard to do that, right? And so this is the challenge here where they have the chips to make one big move for an impact guy. You got to get that move right if you make it, right? Because you're kind of, and I think Robert Thomas, like, of the guys that we're talking about that are available and that could be available, and I'll talk more about those in a second here, but, like, of that grouping, like, I wasn't in on it for Rasmus Andersson. For Robert Thomas, I'm kind of in on it because I think you're getting 4 good years out of him. I think you're getting at least 4 more really good years out of him. And then after that, he still might be an effective player, right? Like, it's just, you got to make sure you get that player right. And is center the biggest need for them? When you have Minton and you have Higgins coming and you have Letourneau coming, like, is that still the need it was in the immediate aftermath of losing Bergeron and Krejci? Like, I wonder. I think Marco Sturm would tell you that defense is what he really wants. He wants another high-impact defenseman to execute his system properly. And so this is sort of the balancing act here of can you address both? I don't think you can. Play a game. Are you trading James Higgins?
No, absolutely not. I've seen people throw that out. Like, no, you're going to have to trade James Higgins to get Robert Thomas. And, like, look, I'm not against trading first-round picks, period. It's when you're talking about multiple first-round picks and you're getting too far into the package of it all. Like, if you're talking about one first-round pick, like, maybe call it their own first-round pick, whatever's worse between that and the Toronto pick, that, Dean Letourneau, and then someone who's stuck in Province like Matthew Poitras. If you can get Robert Thomas for that, I'm in on that. But if you're starting to talk about 2 first-round picks and James Higgins, no, Don Sweeney better hold the line on something like that. I'm not doing that.
So,
and you talked about the window, like, you get 4 good years out of them.
Yeah.
That's, again, that they would be assuming that that's a Stanley Cup window. This is our window to actually go win the Stanley Cup. And I get it. You get into the tournament, anything can happen. I'm just not sure that, like, next year, just, like, say you just add Robert Thomas to this team, now they can go contend to our Stanley Cup. I don't agree with that. I think you're still 1 or 2 moves away.
It really depends here what you get internally. Like, what you get internally in terms of if Minton becomes a second-line center, your clock starts ticking because he's making cheap money, right? And you're going to have to pay him eventually. And so entry-level contracts are cheat codes to be competitive, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so if you say, well, we have a core of Pastrnak, Geekie, Robert Thomas, McAvoy, Lindholm, and Sidorov, and then Swayman. All right, you got your 7 guys right there. Those are your 7 big dogs, right? And now you got to supplement that with entry-level contracts, guys on their second contracts, and now you're loading up. So, like, I agree with you, But I think that they do, to a certain degree, look at their current window as like a 4-year window of loading up on cheaper talent, right? So if you have Minton making low money, and you bring in Hagen's making low money, you find a defenseman with that Toronto pick, you bring him in, depending on how far away he is, maybe 1 year and now he's in here. A top 10 pick on D is typically in the NHL within a year. Like that's like the new norm now.
Not a finished product, but in the league.
Right. Like Carlo took a year. McAvoy took a year. Like those are Carlo's second round pick, but like again, if you get the right guy, they can be in pretty quickly, right?
Right.
And so Lowry was like what, 2 years, 3 years, like whatever it was. But like that's part of like that. So I think that's where they think they are, right? But it's about not pissing away what you have here, right? And so I said, would you trade Hagens? You say no. Would you trade the Toronto pick?
I mean that could be a lottery pick, right?
I'm a no on trading that one right now.
Yeah,
because it could be 7th overall, 8th overall. That's a really good pick.
To me, Hagens and that pick should be off the table.
I'm going to tell you right now, I'm a no on trading Letourneau, which tells me that I'm probably not getting Robert Thomas. If I'm a no on those three things, I'm probably not going to have enough to get him. And I understand why it would be valuable to get him, but I'm not trading Letourneau because this is the player that we're seeing now is the player that we should have seen a year ago. Or I'm sorry, like it's he should have gone to the USHL a year ago. Yeah, he should have been in the USHL a year ago. He wasn't. He loses a year of development. So looking at him right now, this is where he should be. And if he's a top 10 scorer in NCAA right now, I don't really want to trade that guy, especially because he's 6'7". He's got offensive instincts. He can skate well. He's got a good shot. And we all love Tage Thompson, and I'm like, oh my god, if you have Tage Thompson, I don't want to move that. I kind of like Tage Thompson.
I
kind of want that guy.
As much as I like Robert Thomas as a player, I just look at his level of talent combined with the Bruins' current situation. I just don't see that as a move that they have to make or the move that they should make. Because, like, to your point about the team building and the roster construction and the cheap contracts. Like, that's exactly why I don't want to just get rid of all those guys for one player who, again, is going to make them better, certainly at center, and he could be a core guy. I don't think they're extending they're giving themselves as big of a window as they might think. But at the same time, it sounds like they probably aren't going to be willing to just give up the farm to get Robert Thomas. I hope that's not the case. But trade deadline, things get expensive at this time of year.
You got to trust your magic beans, right? Like, that's kind of what it is. But, like, the prospect could be anything. He could be the franchise guy, or he could, like, I think, like, you can look at Letourneau and go, oh, he could be Tage Thompson, or he could be Brian Boyle. Like, I think both players have value, but obviously Tage Thompson is, like, the more valuable offensive weapon that you would have there. And so, I don't know. I just feel like you're not finished building yet, right? Like when you made trades in 2018 and you acquired Rick Nash, did it work out? No, but you had enough comfort in where you were organizationally to make that trade. I don't know if you have that comfort yet. I think you're still building with what you have.
I think that's sort of. I think you just distilled the point I was trying to make in one sentence. So thank you for that.
No worries.
617-779-0985. We are off and running on the trade deadline portion of the program. We're going to come back, take a break here, come back and talk more about that. Matt Dolloff and Ty Anderson on 98.5 The Sports Hub.
Boston's home for sports. 98.5 The
In this town, sports happens 24/7. We're Boston's home for sports. 98.5 The Sports Hub.
98.5 The Sports Hub. Matt Dolloff and Ty Anderson. It is a Sports Hub Underground takeover until 5 p.m. We've been talking Bruins all day today, but you can call in and talk about whatever you want, frankly. We're probably going to mix in other things as the show goes on here, but we are still talking Bruins. 617-779-0985 if you have any thoughts on that. Ty, we talked about the goalies. We talked about the possibilities of what they could do up front in terms of trades. We haven't talked about the defense yet. So I want to talk about that because I honestly feel like if they were only going to make one trade to bring in a potential core guy, at least, if not for just this year, next year, going forward, maybe a guy that they signed to a long-term deal is like, this is a core guy. I think it's on the back end. I've been saying throughout the season, I think Marco Sturm overall has done a good job in his first year. I just don't think he has enough pieces that fit exactly what he wants to do on defense in terms of the tight checking in their own zone, the responsibility in terms of controlling gaps, giving guys limited space to operate. The breakouts have been good, and they got guys that can get a breakout going, like Hampus Lindholm and Mason Lowry, those guys. But then you get to guys like Henry Jokiharju. Andrew Peeke was a scratch recently. I feel like he hasn't really...
2 games in a row now.
He's been sort of on the downswing. I wonder if he's one of the guys that they could potentially trade off the NHL roster and, get a draft pick back and sort of replenish whatever they might be sending out, if that's the case. But I think right shot defenseman is something that they could definitely use right now and going forward. And I'm certainly not trading Charlie McAvoy at this point. I think he's clearly their number one right shot defenseman. It's the depth behind him that is the problem right now. And I think they got to bring in a guy that is, more sound in his own zone, can play that sort of heavier defensive game that is a fit for what I think Marco Sturm wants to do.
Yeah, and I think you look at where they are right now, look at that right side. You mentioned McAvoy. He's playing, I think, arguably the best hockey of his career, in my opinion. I think he's been fantastic for them, and it's kind of flown under the radar, especially lately. No, but you look at their right side. Andrew Peeke, as you mentioned, pending UFA, but also been a scratch for 2 games in a row. There's been talk of him maybe getting flipped here. Henry Jokiharju in and out of the lineup. Not sure he's totally a fit for what they're doing. If you limit him, maybe. I thought it was interesting that he was getting regular PK work these last 2 games. Now he has to because of no Peeke, but still, they're kind of maybe trying to figure out his role. Moving forward.
Penalty kill is another thing they need to fill.
Yeah.
Someone to fill that role.
But then you look at their right side, but beyond just those 3 players, well, you have Jordan Harris, who's been hurt and is getting back. They want to get him in game soon. And then you have Jonathan Aspero, a lefty who can play the right side and has played the right side this year. And you have Mason Lowry, a lefty who is also playing the right side. What does that tell you? You need a right shot D.
Right.
You got to bring in a right shot D. They were linked to Rasmus Anderson, a right shot D. They are linked to other guys that are pretty much all right shot D. And so it tells you that there's probably a move to be made between now and Friday that addresses that, because that is their biggest thing. You mentioned the PK. Yeah, that's got to get better. It's been horrible since the break. They dove in on it on film work during the break. The coaching staff did. They kill off their only penalty on Thursday. They don't have any leaks on Saturday. So, it's better, but the sample size is so small, right? Still. So you got to see that grow a little bit here. But I think D is where they're going to look between now and Friday. I do feel that way.
Tim in the car on Bruins trade deadline. What's up, Tim?
Yeah, hey, gents. I caught a little while ago, and I'm just curious if, Ty, from your reporting and who you talked to, and obviously I understand you wouldn't reveal your sources, totally get that. Mm-hmm. But have you heard anything additionally about what the Bruins management plan is at the deadline? And because if I'm them, I am not a seller. I am not a buyer. Excuse me, I misspoke.
Oh, good.
Because I think those first round picks for them have super value, and I'd rather use those moving forward with the team to get players that have super high potential and that can come in and be real long term difference makers. Because I don't see, even though the Bruins have had a great year in terms of how the roster is constructed, there's no way they're winning the Stanley Cup with this roster. So I would not want them to be buyers at this trade deadline.
Thanks, Tim.
Yeah, Tim, it's a great call, and to touch on it, yeah, I can tell you this. Like, for example, like, Matt, not to ruin your game of naming defensemen at me, but like Rasmus Ristolainen, right? That's a guy in Philadelphia, right shot D, has this year.
Him off the list.
He has this year and next under contract, right? The Bruins like him, but the Flyers were saying, hey, we want a first-round pick for him. And the Bruins were saying, no, age doesn't match up with us giving up a first-round pick for him. We like him, but we don't love him, and we're not going to give up a first-round pick for him. Mackenzie Weegar in Calgary.
You're really ruining the game.
No, but I'm just saying, these are guys that, like...
Well, he's under contract. Like, he's...
Right, but they're kind of saying, like, we like him, but if we're going to be taking him on until his age 37 season or whatever, I don't know if we want to give up multiple first-round picks or a first-round pick. So, like, they understand the magnitude of those picks, Tim. You know, like, that's what I would say, is they understand how valuable they are. And that's why I think personally, and this is not reporting, this is just my own opinion on it, I think they're way more likely to trade a first-round pick at the draft than they are this deadline. Because then you're going to know how the board is going to break, you're going to know who's available, and you're going to say, we can probably part with that 22nd overall or whatever, you know, like whatever their own pick is, assuming they're a playoff team.
And you tell me, like, you're probably getting a better player for that pick than you would at the trade deadline, because it just gets more expensive this time of year.
Yeah, exactly, because you have a limited supply of sellers and you have a lot of buyers, right? So prices get jacked up. That is totally true, right? And guys like Robert Thomas might still be available at the draft if St. Louis and their price isn't met. And so I feel like that's part of the equation, that, like, this is where the Bruins are kind of utilizing their brains here and saying, we like what we have here, but we know that we can't trade a first-round pick for a rental. We can't trade a first-round pick for a guy who's going to be good for 2 years and then who the hell knows what it's going to be after that. So they're aware of that. It's just resisting the temptation to fix it now, right?
I thought of this during Tim's call. I hope it's not the case. But you mentioned earlier about, like, the first round picks are burning a hole in their pocket, like they can't wait to get rid of them. Does this go back to some sort of organizational pressure where, like, you guys have to make the playoffs or your jobs are on the line? Like, we've talked about that before. That might still be sort of lurking in the background with Cam Neely and Don Sweeney. Do you think that's kind of a thing, and that might affect how they approach this trade deadline?
Sweeney's on a 2-year deal. I mean, it's a 2-year deal. You know, like, in a way, he's managing for his job. You know, I don't know if he's managing under a playoff mandate, but, like, if you get an extension and you miss the playoffs 2 out of 3 years, like, are people dying to bring you back? Do they fully believe in the vision? You know, like,
I don't blame them for having that mindset, but I'm just saying, is that going to affect how is he going to start burning first round picks because he's like, well, this player isn't going to be, I'm not going to be here when this player gets to the NHL. So
yeah, no, that was the way that it's funny. Jim Rutherford, when he took over in Pittsburgh, when he was making trades for, like, Phil Kessel and all those guys, he's like, whatever, no first round picks. That's gonna be someone else's problem. I'm gonna be gone by then. Like you do have GMs who do manage like that, you know, and that's where you need ownership to kind of be like, no, like, what's the vision here? Like, we're not gonna be doing that, you know, like, and so. Like, the vision in Vegas is just win. We don't care, just win, right? So that's why the Golden Knights will trade first round picks till 2070 if they want to, because, like, the owner's like, I just want to win. I don't care about draft picks. I don't care about building. Give me a winner, right? And so I feel like the approach from Boston has been more, we want to have a sustainable model. They love using that term, sustainability. All the teams do now, but they really like that model, and the best way to do that is to draft and develop. And so,
especially in
it
this
has
league,
to fit.
Especially in this league where guys don't really honestly get traded until they're 32 and at the end of their contract. These guys, you draft a guy, you develop him, they get to the league, you sign an 8-year extension. That's how it goes with a lot of these teams in the league, especially the ones that draft well. And there's probably some kind of correlation you can find out there with sustained success and drafting well, because that's probably how you do it, especially in this league where guys don't hit free agency. We tried to talk for a couple of years about, like, well, wait until this guy hits free agency, wait until that guy, and they all end up signing extensions. So,
dude, even Kevin Fiala re-signs, you know, a guy that you think would, like, hit the market, you know, or no, was it Adrian Kempe? I think I can't remember now, but, like, one of them re-signed, and you're like, even that guy's staying?
Yeah,
damn.
Well, Kempe was recent. Yeah,
yeah, that's what I'm thinking of. I'm thinking of Fiala because of the injury. Yeah, Kempe re-signed, and you're like, damn, not even that guy wants to test the market. I thought Marty Necas and Colorado would totally hit the market. He didn't do it either. So you have to draft these guys, right? To Tim's point, like you have to. And I feel like the draft, the Bruins are going to know how go back to last year's draft, right? The Islanders were calling the Bruins frantically, trying to get the 7th overall pick on draft night. They wanted it. They wanted Higgins. The Bruins,
he's a Long Island kid, right?
Yeah, and the Bruins were watching the draft board, kind of watching it. All right, we're gonna follow this guy. We're gonna follow that guy. And as the draft board was breaking, the Bruins basically were staying in touch with New York, saying, we'll see. And the board broke their way, and they wanted Higgins. They liked Higgins a lot, and they call the Islanders, we're keeping the pick. So, it can come down to draft night, right? Where, the Bruins are watching the board, and all of a sudden, let's say the board breaks the way that no one thinks it's gonna, and they got the 10th overall pick from Toronto, and they're like, don't love anybody here. We like people here, but we don't love anybody here. Let's make that trade for Jason Robertson. Let's make that trade for Robert Thomas. That might be how it goes down with that first-round pick. Might happen that way.
I'd rather they do that than do it at the deadline, that's for sure. I'm just curious if there's pressure for them to add to the roster between now and the offseason as opposed to taking that more patient, sustained approach. But I guess we'll see how it goes this week. 617-779-0985. We're going to take another quick break here. Come back, talk more hockey. It's Matt Dolloff and Ty Anderson on the Sports Hub.
Boston's home for sports.
in sports. We're fans just like you. 98.5 The Sports Hub.
St. Louis, everybody knows they've been out there for a while, but the prices are big. The price for Thomas is very high. Either another young player who's a younger player than Thomas, who's a potential 1C, or a Quinn Hughes type deal. I think the price on Kyrou is high. The price on Falk, I've said before, is the Rasmus Anderson trade. There's been talk about Binnington. I think they would consider just about anything, but the price is high.
Sports Hub, Matt Dolloff and Ty Anderson with you until 5 o'clock. We're going to do one more break on the Bruins here, exhaust the rest of our topics before we switch gears. So if you want to call in and get a hockey take in before we move on, it's 617-779-0985. Ty, I thought you were going to run through my entire list of names here. You rattled off a couple names that I figured you would mention anyway.
Yeah.
Rasmus Ristolainen. Didn't you say that they kicked the tires on Ristolainen at some point? Not just that he would be a fit, but they've actually looked into that?
It's possible. I can't really remember. They've liked the Buffalo system for a while in terms of just bringing in guys that played in Buffalo. They seem to like whatever their process is there, and they think they can elevate them. They did with Linus Ullmark. Obviously, Taylor Hall was there. Henry Jokiharju was a Buffalo Sabre. They've liked Alex Tuck for a long time, and they don't hate the Buffalo system for whatever reason. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, they look at the Flyers like, you guys suck. We could do more with this guy.
Exactly.
The Bill Belichick approach was often the case.
Right, exactly.
So I'm going to throw a couple more names at you here. Mm-hmm. Guys that I think they're on short money. I did my research. Hopefully it all came out correct. Right shot defenseman, I feel like they sort of would fit what the Bruins need. Mm-hmm. Guys that can, play a solid game in their own end. You tell me if I'm wrong or if I'm behind the times with some of these guys and how they're playing. Mm-hmm. But the first one, look, we've talked about the Winnipeg Jets and how there's just some kind of weird stink going on out there. Guys just don't seem to have it all going on upstairs. Even after they leave the Winnipeg Jets, are they practicing under power lines or something out there? I don't know what's going on. But Dylan DeMello was a defenseman that I think would be a fit for them, and I just don't know if Winnipeg is going to be able to keep him long term. Mm-hmm. And so maybe he's a trade option. What do you think about him?
Well, I can tell you about Winnipeg is they don't have a second round pick this year or next year. So if that fills that void for them, and you want to bring that guy in, you could. Dylan DeMello has another 2 years after this at $4.9 million. He is 32 years old, so you're getting a little older by doing that. So does that help you on the price? Does that hurt you? I'm not entirely sure. I would have to watch him more. I do not enjoy watching the Jets play, so I don't watch a ton of them.
You could reply
for a good reason. For a good reason. Yeah, no, exactly.
Name your city. We hate the Jets.
Even when they're good, they're not worth watching. No, but it is an interesting player. I think the biggest thing for me with him would just be the contract, 4.9 for 32 years old. I don't love that. I don't know if that blends with what you're doing right now.
That feels like nothing to me these days.
Well, it depends, right?
Bouchard making 10.5.
Well, 4.9, but you got to also factor in Jokiharju. So now you're spending $7.9 million on your right side.
I specifically see DeMello as an upgrade over Jokiharju.
Yeah, I would have to look at his game more. I got to be honest with you. But I don't know. I think again, if it were 3 years ago, I'm probably more in on it than I am right now. But that's just me.
I feel like that's the issue with the NHL trade deadline that we talked about is that the fact that Robert Thomas is on the trade block at age 28 is this major development. Guy's in his prime and he's on the trade block. These guys are always, it feels like they're always on the wrong side of 30, past their prime, at end of their contract, and people just spinning off first-round picks and top prospects for these guys. I feel like that's just how it goes, which is why I'm sort of coming on to your idea of waiting to the offseason to make a big trade and, maybe sell pieces this year as opposed to
if you're not gonna keep Andrew Peeke, it's because you don't want to pay him, right? And you think you can get better and cheaper. DeMello kind of flies in the face of that. That's what I would say is that he might not be an upgrade, like a tangible, for certain upgrade, and he's making more money than Andrew Peeke would make. So It's like a weird kind of like flying in the face of the idea of what you're trying to accomplish to a certain degree.
So are they trying to accomplish a money thing or trying to find a guy that fits the team, what they want to do?
A bona fide upgrade for the money. If the money...
This is like, so a guy like DeBello is like, yeah, he's an upgrade, but how much? As opposed to, okay, that guy is actually...
Right. That's why they wanted Rasmus Andersson, because that's a legit upgrade over Low Ryan Peak. Well,
I don't know if these guys are going to fit that bill, but let me give you a couple Russians. Artem Zub, Ottawa Senators. How do you feel about him?
They probably wouldn't trade with Ottawa. They're still kind of
from Walmart.
No, they're still kind of chasing each other to a degree, right? Like they're still kind of, and I just feel like they don't.
Ottawa's in it right now.
They could be. Like they're not that far behind, right? And they could get hot, especially with Linus being back.
So they're not going to sell in their division,
right? Exactly. Okay. Yeah.
I got another one. Okay, so this is a little more palatable. We've talked about the Dallas Stars. They can't sign everybody they have. What do you think about Ilya Lyubushkin?
Big guy, hits, does a lot of little things. Dallas is this is like another year of them going for it. They're not going to be trading anybody off their roster. I would say they're going to add to it.
They are in. Okay.
Yeah, this might be their last gasp. Honestly,
that's a team that are like, okay, you should make the Robert Thomas trade. Not just looking. That caliber of trade.
The NHL is closing that LTIR loophole where you can. Well, they got full relief for Tyler Seguin because he's out for the year. So that's $10 million more that they can now use at the deadline. So they're going to do like the 2023 Boston Bruins, where they're going to acquire talent like crazy and then worry about it later. So I don't think they're going to trade a guy like that, because once the deadline happens, you don't have roster limits so long as you're cap compliant. You can have 28 guys on the roster so long as you're cap compliant, which that Seguin decision allows them to be cap compliant with a loaded roster.
So to the point I was making earlier, like the Dallas Stars, if they could trade first-round picks and prospects that aren't in the NHL right now for Robert Thomas, they might be my pick to win the Stanley Cup. If they add Robert Thomas to what they already have,
they could make a move for one of the core Maple Leafs if they really wanted to. If the Dallas Stars wanted to be really, we're going for it, and we know we got to go through Minnesota and Colorado to win it, they could make a move. If Toronto really wants to tear it down, right, and try to get a top 5 pick so that the Bruins don't get that pick, Dallas is positioned to add one of their core pieces if they really want to.
Either way, that's a team to
terrifying
watch.
Concept.
I know whether the Bruins are involved or not, that's a team to watch. So now that we've run through not to put you on the spot, do you have a name in mind of a guy where he's a bona fide upgrade, legitimate, clear-cut, number 2 right shot defenseman behind Charlie McAvoy, and just assume they can make the money work and he's going to fit what they want to do and be a guy that they could re-sign long-term if they have to, and be sort of that core guy that gives them a real upgrade on the right side there?
Well, the guy I would look at would be Zach Whitecloud, a guy involved in the deal that sent Rasmus Andersson to Vegas would be Whitecloud. Whitecloud went from Vegas to Calgary. He's been pretty good for Calgary. I like him. He's 29. He's making $2.75 million for 2 more years after this, and then he's due for a contract. I really like what he can do. 6'2", but he skates well. He can put up points. He can play a lot of different roles. He's been on a team in Vegas that won a Stanley Cup, so I kind of like him as like a mid-tier option. I think the St. Louis Blues are crazy for trying to get the Anderson baggage for Justin Falk. I'd rather pee my pants and walk around my pee pants all day than pay that price for Justin Falk. He's not that good anymore.
But peeing your pants is the coolest.
That's how I feel. I wouldn't do that. Like, even Parayko is a guy that you wouldn't pay that price for now, as much as you may like him. So I feel like a guy like Whitecloud might be the move for a team like Boston if they can pull that off. But we'll see. We'll see if he wants to move. I know that Whitecloud was actually kind of excited about going to Calgary. So we'll see how he feels about being moved and if they actually want to move him. But keep in mind that Calgary was a yes to acquiring Lowry and Patra. They were in on it. The reason why the deal fell apart is because Anderson didn't want to extend in Boston. So the Flames like Patra and like Lowry. So is there a deal to be had there, whether it's for Whitecloud or Weegar? We'll have to wait and see. But that's a possibility, I think, between now and Friday.
I would like either of those guys on. I like Weegar. I know he's older and you're kind of saddled with his contract. But maybe you would cost less in a situation.
It just comes back to
maybe that's the plan. Like that's the move. Is like keep at it with Calgary and see if they'll send you someone.
It just comes back to the greater overall picture here for the Boston Bruins. Is like what are you? Are you a contender? Are you still building? What do you think you are? Right? And I say that because Don Sweeney and Cam Neely, last time we heard from them was media day. As a whole, like they've done interviews with the Globe or whatever. But like last time we heard from them, Cam Neely told us, we don't want to be a playoff team just to get in. We want to be a contender. Where do they think they are right now? Because back then, I don't think they thought they were a contender. Has that changed between then and now? Like, and what moves do they make to reflect that appropriately? I do think there's going to be, Sweeney was on Nesson last Thursday or whatever, before the Columbus game, and he kind of said, like, we might do a little bit of both. I think that is what they're going to do. But I think the little bit of both part of it, that is when it comes to adding, is in search of another core piece or a guy who could be a core piece. I don't think they're going to be doing rentals. I think they're going to be focusing on younger players that do have term. Not too much term, but term nevertheless.
One more thing that I wanted to touch on as far as the trade deadline goes before we move on is that we talked about Andrew Peeke, but as far as tradable NHL players that they might trade off the roster because they don't see them as a core guy going forward, or they're not going to re-sign them, so we might as well get what we can for them. The other two guys I have on that list are Pavel Zacha and Casey Middlestat, who I think both have had good years. I think Middlestat has been kind of a pleasant surprise compared to what I was expecting. But look, they're in a spot now where they got to decide on these guys as far as long term. I don't know if that has to be this week. You tell me, but like I feel like there's a decision coming on both of those guys, and I don't want those to be guys that leave for nothing, especially when I see either of them as possibly guys that you might be able to get convince a team to give you a first round pick for Zacha for sure. Mm-hmm. But what do you think about the possibility of trading those guys? Even if it's just one guy, like not totally selling the farm, but if you're talking about a soft sell and doing, a little bit of both, I think that should entail possibly trading a guy off the NHL roster and getting yet another good draft pick for him. And I just feel like Zacha and Middlestat are sort of on the list for that.
Yeah, I mean, they got to be a money in, money out kind of team, right? And so if it's not just Peak and if it's not low rye, then you look at Middlestat, who's making $5 million, a little bit like 5.75, I want to say.
Oh, quickly, I looked it up on Puckpedia, assuming they're accurate. They have about $5 million in cap space for the deadline. So that's about how much they can add. You're not looking at much space to really add much in general.
Yeah, and so if they want to aim big and they want to bring in a potential core piece who's already making money, then there's going to have to be some money matching involved, right? And that's where those guys might come in. They're not going to move Zacha. I think they're more likely to extend him than trade him. Middlestat, though, is the weird one. He's had a good year playing the wing, natural center playing the wing all year. He's been an effective scorer. I think he has been leaned on nights when Minton doesn't have it, which has been important for them. And I feel like he's been a nice little safety net to a certain degree with guys like Husnudinov and, as I mentioned, Minton, and even guys like Steves and Asamon, who have given you something, but then some nights they don't give you enough. Or like he's been a guy that they've leaned on, and that line as a whole, Middlestat, Zacha, and Arvidsson, has actually been their most common line this year. Like that's been a go-to for Marco Sturm, and so I don't know if they want to peel that away. Same thing with Arvidsson. A week ago I'd say, they're going to trade Arvidsson. They're going to cash in on that value. Listen to Marco Sturm after talking about him after a game on Thursday. They ain't moving that guy. They love him. And so I don't think he's going to get traded, even though it would probably behoove them to maximize on his value right now. And so this is, again, to wrap it all up, this is the weird part that they're in, where they're kind of trying to do both. It's tough balancing act for a GM and a team to do, especially when you're winning games. If they were losing games, it's like, sorry, your culture's great, but we still stink. So these guys are getting traded. Like, no, they're kind of building something right now, it feels like.
So I think that's a good point that they're sort of in that mode right now where they could do pretty much whatever they want, as far as buying, selling, a little of both, whatever. So they're not in a spot where they have to get what they can for a guy like Pavel Zacha or Casey Middlestat. So it's not like they have to dump these guys for whatever they can get. I just think you got to listen if someone's interested. And yeah, it all depends on what you're getting back as far as, any trade, especially if you're moving off a core guy who's been sort of a good piece and a key to some of the success you've had this year. 617-779-0985. I lied. We got Mike from Woburn on the line, so I kind of want to get his thoughts on Bruins trade deadline when we come back from this next break, and then we will switch gears after that. Once again, 617-779-0985. We're going to switch gears in the final hour, but we're going to take one more break and come back here and do one more spot on the Bruins. Matt Dolloff and Ty Anderson on 98.5 The Sports Hub.
Everybody my age pees their pants. It's the coolest.
Boston's home for sport.
Celtics, the Patriots, the Sox, the Revs, and you. We're Boston's home for sports. 98.5 The Sports Hub.
98.5 The Sports Hub, Matt Dolloff and Ty Anderson. It's a Monday Nitro kind of day here on the Sports Hub.
We got Parka.
We got Hulk Hogan versus Sid at the end of the show there.
Joining us now on the expert hotline is La Parka.
Got a Marcus Bagwell on a pole match later on. We'll let Vince Russo in.
I will say this. The WCW was not, especially the era that I kind of watched, it was like 98, 99. It was kind of, it was kind of over at that
Past
point.
their prime. Yeah, on the downhill there.
Piper's entrance with the bagpipers and Bischoff dressed as a Scottish guy in the ring, that was fantastic. I'm a Roddy Piper. I always say Rodney the Piper, like Santino. Roddy Piper is like my absolute favorite of all time. Him and Bret Hart. So
he was a legend. He was great all the way through his career. I thought he could talk his way through anything. Like, didn't have to be a great in-ring guy.
Mm-hmm.
But that has been wrestling talk for today with the Sports Hub Underground Takeover on 98.5 The Sports Hub. We are going to get into the Patriots next hour. So anything you want to call in and talk about in the Patriots, anything you want at all, 617-779-0985, but they got a big offseason coming up, and so we're going to get into some topics there. But we're going to do one more quick Bruins segment here because we have Mike from Woburn on the line, and I want to hear his thoughts. Good to hear from you, Mike. What's on your mind today?
I wish I had a bagpipe entrance. Piper was also one of my favorites, just the absolute best. You guys keep talking about like the trade targets and whatnot, and I feel like the decision is to bring in a guy that has term and will basically add to the core for the future. And I think the only option there is Thomas. I mean, I was looking at the TSN trade bait tracker, and they've got him listed at 4th behind like Coleman and Kadri. And I'm like, those guys are I don't want to say washed, but they're at the end of their careers. There's no way that those guys to me are more attractive than Thomas. And if you're going to trade for Thomas, who's actually 26, he's adding to your core. McAvoy's like 28, Pasternak's 30, Zadorov is I think like 29 or 30, I'm not sure, but they're in their prime. So if you're going to make a move, you want to add to the core right now and have a guy who's ready for the basically McAvoy and Pasternak's prime going forward, and that's Thomas. And for me, if I'm making that move, I basically try to get St. Louis to do a 1-for-1 or close to a 1-for-1 as possible, and Higgins would be the guy because it's the only guy I think that basically you're replacing Higgins with Thomas. You're basically saying, here's a guy that's is 19. We don't know what kind of center he's going to be in the future. We're going to have to wait for him to develop into that player. We'll give you that guy for Thomas, who's ready now to compete now because we think this team is ready to compete now. And that way you save Letourneau, who I think I tie him with you. I'm willing to basically keep Letourneau, and if he turns into the next, Jack Studnicka, then that's fine. But he's a unicorn physically, and you don't give up on those guys. You basically save Will Zellers. You save your assets in the draft, which the Toronto pick now is 8th overall. If they don't win the lottery, you could be looking at your next right-hand defenseman, which solves a problem, which means you don't have to overpay for Justin Falk. If you can make as close to a 1-for-1 for Thomas with Higgins being the prime piece, I'm all for it.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it as always. I think he's right that like if they want that core guy who's going to be here long term, and you're dropping in a core guy to group with all the other guys that you mentioned that they have for long term, Thomas probably is the only option. Just my question is why the urgency to make that move right now? Like if they really think like we're in a position we just need to add one more piece and we're in a Stanley Cup window and we're going to go for it, I just don't agree with them. I feel like they got to do at least one more year of keeping the drafting and developing going. Don't mortgage all your draft picks and just stay the course with what you did last year, at least for another year. Like I think they're proving right now that they can stay in it and at least, sneak into the playoffs with what they have right now. And I just don't see this as right. I don't see right now as the situation to make that big of a trade. And I get that Mike sort of said, don't give up all your draft picks. Do just Higgins for Thomas straight up. If that's the trade, I'm not sure I love that either. I just feel like James Higgins could be offensively anyway, could be a lot better than Thomas. And I get it. Like you might at the end of the day say, I'll take a guy like Thomas who scores 80 points but plays a two-way game over a guy like James Higgins who might score 90, 100 points but is a liability defensively. Like, if that's the argument, I guess I could see a case for Robert Thomas there. I just don't see the urgency to make that move right now, and especially to give up a guy that you finally got a top 10 draft pick and a guy that looks like he's going to be a high-end offensive talent in the NHL. Mm-hmm. I don't understand the urgency to make a move like that right now.
Again, it comes back to, what do you think Higgins is going to be, right? Is he going to be a center? Is he going to be a wing? If he's a center, then there's a premium on that kind of player, right? If he's a winger, you're like, okay, I mean, I like it, but that's more expendable, right? The Bruins will tell you that they love James Higgins because James Higgins has been incredible against his peers, and they feel that if that continues, he will be a really good NHLer.
If they trade him and he's like the next Celebrini, that would be so annoying.
He might not be the next Celebrini, but he could be like the next Jack Hughes, which I know his value. But it's really funny about Jack Hughes, right? Because everyone is like, you can't trade that guy. He scored the gold medal goal. You can't trade that guy. The Jack Hughes that you've seen in the NHL has been a bit polarizing. The reason why Jack Hughes has popped off this year is because the finishing is finally there. He's shooting the puck more. He's not deferring. That was something that James Higgins did a year ago at BC. He was deferring to his line mates. And they had to say to him, hey man, you're a great player. You dominated for Team USA at the World Juniors. Like, trust yourself. Don't defer so much. If James Higgins, if that light can go off for James Higgins a little bit earlier than it did for Jack Hughes, I don't want to trade that guy. You know what I mean? And so I come back to this. Mike is totally right. Everything he's saying is totally right. But I come back to, if you ask me, I'm not trading the Toronto first. I'm not trading Letourneau, and I'm not trading Higgins. That tells me that I can't get Robert Thomas. As much as I want him, I can't get him.
And that's not the end of the world, if you ask me. All right, 617-779-0985. We are going to transition to the Patriots. They got a big couple months coming up. They got areas to fill the roster after the way things went in the Super Bowl. Clear areas they need to upgrade. We are going to get into that. And Ty's going to give you a quick look at the headlines first, and we'll come right back, talk some football. Matt Dolloff and Ty Anderson on 98.5 The Sports Hub.
From the Telefair Tiger Studios, this is Boston's home for sports. Touchdown! The flagship station of the Patriots, Bruins, the Celtics, WBC-FM and HD Boston 98.5 The Sports Hub. Beasley Media Group Station celebrating 65 years of broadcasting. Essential Sports Hub headline presented by Celsius Energy Drinks.
The Bruins' point streak came to an end Saturday with a 3-1 loss to the Flyers down in Philly. Bruins defenseman Charlie McAvoy had Boston's only goal, while Jeremy Swayman allowed 2 goals on 16 shots. The Bruins will get back to work Tuesday when they host the Penguins, who are without Sidney Crosby, over at TD Garden. Bruins general manager Don Sweeney will speak with the media following Monday's practice, by the way, so get ready for a trade deadline primer from the Bruins GM. The Celtics, meanwhile, will look to keep it rolling tonight when they host the 76ers over at TD Garden. This, of course, was the game notably moved to primetime a few weeks ago, which sparked theories that Jason Tatum would return tonight. That will not happen, however, as the C's ruled Tatum out on last night's injury report. And league-wide news in the NFL, according to Ian Rappaport, Cardinals quarterback Kyler Murray is likely to be released by the club, barring a last-minute trade. Sports Hub headlines are brought to you by Valvoline. Enjoy quick and convenient vehicle maintenance this month. Visit NewEnglandOilChange.com for 15% off your drive-thru oil change at Valvoline Instant Oil Change, the official oil change of busy people. I am Ty Anderson. That has been Sports Hub headlines, and we will talk to you after this break.
The Sports Hub. 3 legendary franchises on one legendary radio station. It's the Sports Hub. No matter what team, no matter what player, no matter what coach, no matter what game, it all happens here. 98.5 The Sports Hub.
I think you could look at it from a couple different ways there. Like, obviously having more playmakers is a good thing. So yes, we are looking at the wide receiver position to try to improve depth and at the top as well. But also when you run your offense and you have one of these number one receivers, the quarterback can get in trouble by trying to force the ball to that person. So I know the way Josh has built the offense out, you're supposed to throw the ball to the open guy, and that's what we were able to do this year. And, obviously there's a hierarchy of players who play the most snaps on third downs and things like that. But to answer your question, basically, like, the more playmakers we have, the better we're going to be.
And now underground. Still clown with the underground when we come around.
98.5 The Sports Hub, Matt Dolloff and Ty Anderson. It's a Sports Hub Underground Takeover. We got you until 5 o'clock, and that was Elliott Wolf at the Combine talking about the Patriots offseason, potentially getting a number one receiver. Ty, I feel like everyone falls into this same trap every year where you got to get him that number one guy, the guy that dictates the coverage, takes the top off the defense, gets open, makes big plays. And I get it. I think eventually you're going to have to get that. I think you're going to need better receivers, certainly, than they had this year if you want to win a Super Bowl. I still think they gotta keep focusing on the trenches this offseason. If they make only one big move, I hope it's an offensive lineman or a bigger name edge rusher. That's the direction I hope they take. And I tend to agree with Elliott Wolf on the premise that you don't necessarily want to have your offense just be so centered on one specific receiver.
The quarterback can get in trouble by trying to force the ball.
And he might actually be talking specifically about Drake May. Drake May, as great as a year that he had last year, and he was the main reason that I thought that they were 14-3 in the first place. If he had a Jamar Chase, I'm pretty sure he would just try to force the ball to him, even when he's like triple covered. I mean, we see that at times this year.
Yeah.
And so, like, I'm not saying run it back with what you have. Like, try to get someone. I just don't think you need that superstar number one receiver that you're going to have to trade multiple first-round picks, trade him $40 million a year. Look, you need separators. You need guys that can get open on their own, beat man coverage, and give defensive coordinators things to think about. I get that. I feel like you can get that without over-investing in one specific player, and especially when you don't look like you've figured out how to protect your quarterback in the first place. And so I think step one, I think it's putting the cart before the horse, I think as the saying goes, to focus on the receiver before the line. They gotta improve the offensive line before they even think about getting that big name receiver. Get a guy that can get open for sure. Make an upgrade somewhere. I think, in the slot they could maybe make an upgrade. They could maybe get a guy that is capable of making big plays on the outside, but you don't need to get that superstar receiver just yet. Please focus on the line. That's my question. That's my request for Elliott Wolf and the Patriots this year. I think they agree with me. Do you agree with me? What do you think, Ty?
I mean, yeah, but I think you can and should do both. I just feel like I think the Super Bowl really highlighted how sort of on an island Drake May was, and yeah, it was the offensive line, but even if he could escape and throw it to, who's he getting it to? Diggs was really quiet in that game. I think Pop Douglas had the best game out of anyone you had, right? And so if you're not gonna, I understand like the theory here. It sounds like Elliott Wolf's preference would be to have 4 number 2s, right? And that way they're all open. Doesn't really matter how good you are.
I think that might be Josh McDaniels, though.
Yeah, it could be. I just feel like you need to have somebody who can dictate coverage a little bit more, so that you can't send a safety flying in on a blitz, because like you got to worry about this guy who can torch you, and like all it takes is one little quick throw and that guy's gone. But
again, they couldn't figure out that blitz up front. They couldn't pick it up. They couldn't block it.
But I think
so. You have it doesn't matter who you're throwing the ball to when stuff like that is going on. That's sort of the point I was making.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to sticking to the topic of wide receiver. I mean, it's clear AJ Brown and Mike Evans, and it's not exactly like a murderer's row. Like if Justin Jefferson were available, right, or Jamar Chase or T. Higgins, I'd be sitting here going, you got to get that guy. That guy would be amazing here. No, you're talking about another project to a certain degree, a project in either age or a project in attitude, a project in keeping them satisfied. I know AJ Brown's been the big topic. I will sit here right now on March 1st, 2026 and say I don't want AJ Brown. Now, I'm willing to bend on that if the price is right, But Howie Roseman's still driving a really high price on him. It seems like they want a first-round pick. They're not going to get that. But if they take a second-round pick or a third-round pick, then I'm more in on it. But this is a guy who, knows Mike Vrabel, but it was unhappy on the best, most efficient offense in football, basically. He doesn't get his targets. Always reading a book now. Right. You really want to go through with that? I don't want to go through with that.
What's he rating now? No. Oh, God, it's War and Peace. This is a long one.
Yeah, great. Here comes Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy on the bench. You're like, no, stop.
Oh, God, he's got the entire Encyclopedia Britannica in front of him.
I'd rather not. And I think that the price has to be right for that to work for the Patriots. But I don't know. I feel like they need both, Matt. It's clear they need both. It's just, I think it's easier to address the wide receiver than it is the offensive line. You can draft a tackle the 4th overall. You have no idea if that guy's going to be, good to go. It's the most fickle position, I think, arguably in sports, is
offensive line.
Offensive line, especially tackle play. I think tackle play, it's so hard to truly know. Oh, like Mekhi Becton. When the Jets drafted him, I was like, that's a good pick, man. That guy's huge. He's on his 3rd team now, right? He wasn't good until they went to Philadelphia, and now he's back out of Philly, who were kind of like the Bruins with goalies of offensive line play, it feels like the Eagles are. Now he's back in San Diego or L.A., and you're like, okay, he's back to kind of being whatever. He's not a great player. You know what I mean? So it's just a fickle position, and I feel like it's just hard. I get what you're saying. I just feel like it's easier to address the wide receiver than the offensive line.
I should have said from the top that I want to try to keep it realistic here with what the Patriots are going to do. Yes, they can and should do everything that we're talking about. I just don't think realistically they're going to do that. I don't think they're going to go out and sign, say, a franchise right tackle and go make a big trade for A.J. Brown or sign a Mike Evans. Mike Evans might be short money, might like a 1-year deal sort of thing. I just don't think they're going to do everything. So if they have to make the one big move, I think it should be to try to shore up the offensive line. And to your point, I get what you're saying, that the offensive line is a unit where you could bring in one wide receiver and he makes the difference for the whole offense. Mm-hmm. It doesn't really work that way in the offensive line. You kind of need the unit unless you're talking about a left tackle, and they're going to stick with Will Campbell, it sounds like, at left tackle. So I'm looking at right tackle, I'm looking at left guard as areas where they could make a clear upgrade. And so I would still go in that direction because you gotta protect the quarterback. And I don't even think it ends with the offensive line. I think, part of Travion Henderson's appeal as a prospect, and I think to the Patriots, was that he was an elite blitz pickup guy in college. And he didn't show much of that at all in his rookie year. So if you stay the course with him and he sort of takes a step forward, he can start picking up the blitz. Stevenson struggled with that in the Super Bowl. He had moments picking up the blitz. If they can fix that too, and if they can get a tight end's another need for them. I want them to get a guy that can block. I'd rather take a guy that can block and catch occasionally over the playmaking tight end. People have talked about Kyle Pitts. I get it, you need playmakers, but you still got to block up front. I need a guy that can block at tight end. They haven't really had that in a couple of years, and so I think the blocking issue even goes beyond the offensive line. But to your point, at wide receiver, they could probably just bring in one player and he makes that much of a difference as opposed to one offensive lineman.
Yeah, I mean, listen, they got really good production out of Stephon Diggs a year ago. Now it dried up as the playoffs went. He didn't have it. I don't think he had a good playoff really at all. It felt like Diggs was out of gas or something during the playoffs. And if you bring it but
I think December Diggs is a thing.
But Diggs had
out of gas.
He had 1,000 yards. You know what I mean? You're able to get him touches to keep him happy, right? And we're talking about A.J. Brown, and he's going to want touches, right? The other guy that we're hearing right now is Mike Evans. Jeremy Fowler from ESPN sort of highlighted Mike Evans' criteria for his next team.
Yeah, you were telling me about this.
And he wants 4 things. He wants a top-shelf offensive coordinator. He wants a team that has a chance to win a Super Bowl. He wants what he thinks is an elite quarterback. And the 4th thing, he wants a guaranteed high volume of touches.
I don't know about the 4th thing. I think the first 3 boxes are checked.
Mm-hmm.
4th thing, I don't think a big outside receiver is going to be the high volume guy. But I do think he's a fit for Drake May. I think Drake May would want to chuck the ball up to him.
Yeah.
And Mike Evans is a guy that historically he can come down with the ball in a one-on-one situation. He can get open just by using his body and his catch radius and things like that. I like him as a fit. I'd be fine with him as a short-term fix, bringing him in as that big outside receiver. I just don't know about
2.0.
I don't know about the volume part. I think the volume, especially in this offense, is going to come at the slot position. So I think Diggs, they tried to make him their volume guy. I think they were hoping for Pop Douglas to eventually become that volume guy. I feel like if they can make an upgrade in the slot or like get a guy that's a better fit for that, he could be the high volume, move the sticks, get a drive starter. Like if they could, like Diggs, he had 85 catches, I think, 1,000 yards, 4 touchdowns. Production-wise, on paper, you should be able to find that, especially with Drake May throwing the ball and Josh McDaniels scheming it up. I think you can get a solid, reliable slot receiver for not a hefty price, and even just in the draft. It's on the outside where they got to get the playmakers. So I'd be okay with Mike Evans as a short-term fix. I just don't. I'm not in favor of them pushing in all their chips for just the one outside receiver when they still have to figure out how to block it up. That's just my thought on it.
No, it's fair. It's fair. And it's one of the many things they have to address this offseason. I just feel like it would be a failure in terms of what you did a year ago if you come into the year. And I assume Diggs is gone just because of that money. That's a lot of money due for a guy that, again, really faded down the stretch and out of frame. So unless he's willing to renegotiate and take far less money, it feels like he's a goner.
I think if you could reallocate that money to an outside guy and then spend a little less on the slot guy, that might be a palatable options, doable.
But what I'm saying, like, you would kind of piss away a little bit of your momentum here. I think if you just said, no, we're gonna lean on Booty and Douglas and Mac Hollins, you're kind of like, what? No,
don't.
You kind of need something, right?
Don't do that. Do something between that and going all in for Justin Jefferson. Find an in between there.
No, it's true, but that's your challenge right now.
All right, we're up against it. 617-779-0985. Tim, I see you on the line. We're going to come back and we're going to continue this conversation on the Patriots. Matt Dolloff and Ty Anderson, 98.5 The Sports Hub.
You're supposed to throw the ball to the open guy.
Boston's home for sports. 98.5 The Sports Hub. 95.5 The Sports Hub.
Mike, we talked about needs with Elliott yesterday. When you look at the roster, do you see as something that's most missing that you'd like to address here? Trade?
I mean, I'm the same way every year. We'll try to do what we can when we can to make each position competitive. Fill a roster, that has competition at each position. I go back to one year, got to training camp, and I called Jen and I said, hey, there's like 7 linebackers that started. She said, well, you better have a good camp. And that was a good message and a good reminder. And it always ended up working. But made everybody better, got people in the right spots, guys had roles, and I think that's just a good reminder of what we have to try to do. We have to try to provide competition at each and every spot so that we don't have complacency and that we're building depth and getting these guys to truly believe.
Options for the Patriots. What's up, Tim?
Hey, guys. How you doing? Great show, by the way. Really enjoying it. I agree with what you guys have been talking about recently. With this offense and the schemes that they put in place, you really need like another tight end option, a very strong tight end. Shore up the line. Maybe it's another left guard. Move Wilson, but we need somebody else, from the tight end position that can really make some plays. You got Booty, can stretch the field. You got some good receivers, maybe not elite, but they're very good receivers. I also think Afton Chisholm, and that's a lot. He's going to grow, and I don't know if it's going to be next year or not, but he's going to be a surprise to everybody. He's got great hands. He finds open space. He's tough. He's still got to grow into his body, get a little stronger, but the future's bright at the receivers position. I think Kyle Williams can stretch the field as well. I wouldn't put everything into the wide receiver position.
All right, thanks, Tim. That's actually a solid point on Chisholm. He's kind of the guy I'm talking about, where maybe he takes a step forward and he can step in and be that slot guy. And I don't know if he's going to get 85 catches and 1,000 yards, but maybe he could be that volume, chain-moving type of receiver that sort of stresses the defense, and that they now got to come down and account for him in the coverage. And then you got a guy like Kyle Williams, or if you bring in another receiver that can make plays over the top, and we know Drake May wants to do that. Like, I'm certainly receptive to that sort of idea. And to his other point about tight ends and left guard, this is sort of to the point you were making earlier, Ty, where they could get a solid starting left guard on day 2 of the draft. They could sign a guy, sort of in the middle of the pack as a free agent, and then move Jared Wilson to center, which is his natural position. I think that it's under the radar that he played left guard out of necessity last year because they just basically didn't address the position. They had Cole Strange, day 1 starter at left guard in camp, which was that was just destined to fail. I don't know if he's even in the league right now, where he is, what's going on with him. So left guard is a spot, I think if they attacked it, they don't necessarily need to attack it with the best free agent or a first-round pick or anything like that. Receiver, though, you kind of need talent, right? So I think that's sort of the point you're trying to make, where you can fix the offensive line without overspending or getting the most talented guy. You can't really do the same thing at receiver, where you're just bringing in a solid guy, a complimentary guy. They got plenty of complimentary receivers. I know Bart's big on this. They need a guy that can dictate the coverage, as Diggs was this past year. I don't know that he's going to be that guy moving forward. I think a smart defense is going to watch the film on him and say, like, we don't need to devote everything to stopping Diggs. I don't think he's the same player, especially if they get later in the year. So I get it. They need talent at wide receiver, and you can't really get around that. I just think they need to attack that problem up front. And tight end is a way that they could attack sort of both things. Mm-hmm. So I really do hope they make a sizable kind of move at tight end. But that's my thought on the call.
Yeah, I feel like Kyle Williams is somebody that is worth talking about, because he did kind of have, again, limited usage, but you noticed him more late in the year, right? And so if that can continue, much like how Kayshon Boutte, his first year, you didn't really notice him, and then you start see more and more, you're like, oh, okay, they got something here. Maybe that can be a game changer for you. I just feel like it's always tough when you just let people inherit the role, right? Like, and you kind of say, like, no, you'll be good. You kind of live that for a few years. Every year was Pop Douglas's big year, waiting for him to pop off. And now we're like 5 years in, and we're kind of like, I don't know if he's going to be popping off, man.
No,
I don't think it's going to happen.
It's been 3 years of this now. He's great in camp. He's explosive, and it's like, oh, my God, they got something here. and then he doesn't do much at all in the regular season. Like I give him credit for having a good playoff, but if they move on from Pop Douglas, I'd be okay with that.
Right, and so you kind of look at that and where they are, and that's. I agree though with Tim about the tight end. That is an old tight end room. That is an old room. I think Hooper's 31, Henry's 32. I want to say like
a lot of tread on those tires with Hunter Henry, especially. He's been a starting tight end like his whole career.
And listen, he's been really good at staying on the field here, which is not something that he could say when he was with the Chargers.
No, he was not known for that. I was honestly kind of surprised he's been staying on the field.
So, but the crazy person in my brain, or the analytic person in my brain, says that's going to turn as he's getting older, and you've had 3 straight healthy years with him or whatever it's been. It's like you might have that injury coming here soon, and what's your backup plan behind that? You really don't have one, and so I think you got to get younger there. Naturally, I have the scars from Dalton Keene and Devin Asiasi, in that draft. Like, oh, for good, you got 2 young guys here. So, like, you need a blend there, right? You can't just go all young. But that is a sneaky underrated position that they have to address, I think, this offseason.
If I remember correctly, when the Patriots drafted Devin Asiasi and Dalton Keene, I think both in the 3rd round, like almost consecutive picks maybe in that draft.
Mm-hmm.
I think Asiasi was considered like a potential day 2 guy. Keene was, I think, considered a reach at the time. And then obviously he never panned out in the NFL. So, I mean, that was sort of a Belichick drafting issue, I think, with those guys.
Mm-hmm.
But tight end has been a spot where I think you can get a really good guy who could play a 2-way game on day 2 of the draft. Tucker Kraft, the Packers tight end, he's one of the best all-around tight ends in the league. I'm pretty sure he was a 3rd-round pick. So, like, you don't have to – this is, again, like to the same point about everything that we talked about. You don't have to get Brock Bowers to have – you don't have to draft Brock Bowers in the top 15 in the draft to get an impact tight end or a guy that can do both things for you. But I do think they need to get a guy that can ideally do both. But you got to get a guy that can block better than Hunter Henry or Austin Hooper. Those guys are pass catchers. And I get it. They're willing blockers. I give them credit for trying. They're just not executing at that level. So I kind of hope they do get a free agent there. They're not going to get any younger if they sign a guy that I like, Tyler Higbee, who is on track to be a free agent. I don't know if the Rams are going to let him. Maybe the Rams keep him. They go year to year with him. But, like, if you go back and watch specifically when the Rams played the Seahawks, when the Rams had success against the Seahawks, it's because they had a guy like Tyler Higbee who could be that extra blocker in the gap run game. And, like, I looked at that and said, look, I think the Patriots could do this, but it turns out they didn't really have the personnel to do that. So you can find a pure blocking tight end pretty much anywhere. I don't think they need to overinvest in that. But if they bring in a free agent, I really hope it's a guy that they know can be a capable, good blocker, can pick up the system, help him in the running game, and then protect and chip guys whenever you need him to do that. And if he can occasionally catch a pass down the seam, catch a pass in the red zone, I'd be okay with that. But like what the tight end, like when they bring in a tight end, they infuse talent on the team. That the blocking has to be a focus for that. 617-779-0985. We're going to take another break here. We're going to come back and talk more Patriots here. Matt Dolloff and Ty Anderson, 98.5 The Sports Hub.
Boston's home for sport. In this town, sports happens 24/7. We're Boston's home for sports. 98.5 The Sports Hub.
.98.5 The Sports Hub. Matt Dolloff and Ty Anderson with you until 5 o'clock. Going to do one more quick Patriots break here. I just wanted to pull up, Ty, Mike Reese's column this morning. He always gives us Sunday notes, even in the offseason. And he's the best in the business, in my opinion. I think he's as plugged in as anybody. And, while he might not explicitly report stuff the way his colleague Adam Schefter does, I think he drops more than enough nuggets that tell you, whether implied or just sort of sneaking it in there, he's giving you an indication of what the Patriots are going to do. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying this was snuck in there, but his column today says his biggest takeaway from the Combine, while they will always listen to trade possibilities for big-name stars they believe would help the team, they don't view themselves as the proverbial one player away, quote-unquote, from a return trip to the Super Bowl. Thus, they are less inclined to send a Micah Parsons-type draft pick haul to another team for a veteran star. I don't see why anybody would even be in favor of making that kind of trade. They're definitely not in that spot. I think that showed in the Super Bowl that, yeah, they might have been the best the AFC had to offer, but they're still, multiple steps away from competing with, the class of the NFC like Seattle, or even if the Rams made it, maybe in retrospect the Rams would have clearly proven that they were better than the Patriots all around. And I think it's clear that we talked about how they have multiple things they need to focus on fixing, and ideally they can do both. I just don't think they're going to be able to do both overnight, and they're not going to spend to that level. And they're going to focus on drafting, developing, and plug in the holes wherever they can. But I'm kind of okay with them saying we're not going to make that big splash, because they really aren't in that position. It's kind of the same thing with the Bruins, not to cross sports, that why are we talking about like they got to make that one piece and they're going to get back to the Super Bowl? I just don't think that's realistic. I don't think they expect it to be in the Super Bowl this year, Ty. I think they almost kind of coached the game that way. It's like, well, we didn't think we were going to be here. Didn't know we were going to have to come up with a plan here.
Yeah.
We'll figure this out. But yeah, it sounds like they're basically going to stay the course. They'll bring in guys wherever they can, but not expecting a big move out of them.
No, and that's fair. Just don't do nothing, though. You know what I mean? Like, if you feel like, hey, we have a good core, and now we're building the supporting cast so that we don't have a cataclysmic drop-off from one year to the next, like, that's cool. Like, but give me, enough to feel comfortable that you can still be 11-6 or whatever, right? Or 10-7 and still be in the hunt. Don't go back down to 9-8 or 8-9 and be like, well, we weren't supposed to be there a year ago. It's like, yeah, but then you didn't capitalize on momentum that you had generated, right? Like you got momentum. Don't let it go to waste, right? Like, and that's sort of, I think, what people like myself are saying, where it's like, I can acknowledge that last year was a fluke. However, it was also one hell of a building block. And if you don't build on that, then that's where it's a true disappointment, I think, if you're a New England Patriots fan.
So I think that 31st pick in the draft is where they could get a day one core player, especially if it's an edge rusher. This year is a very deep edge rushing class. Mm-hmm. There's probably three top 5 picks are going to be edge rushers, something like that. And inevitably, I think someone's going to shake free from that. Someone's going to fall. There's going to be a run on the best offensive players, and it's just a deep edge rusher class, and guys are going to fall to the end of the first round, top of the second. So I think that's an area where you're talking about they got to add more core pieces. I agree with you. I think they know that too. Mm-hmm. They just don't want to overinvest in that. It's, again, to go back to the Bruins, like, yeah, we know we need to add core players, but it's kind of counterproductive to give up multiple first-round picks, roster players, prospects, like giving up 4 top prospects or guys that have that kind of value for the one core guy is kind of counterproductive when if you just stay the course, you could probably end up with multiple guys. And so I look at the 31st pick as they're probably earmarking that to be a core guy. I just hope that they nailed their free agent class last year. I think they have a chance to maybe nail their free agent class again if they continue doing whatever their approach was last year. There's just not going to be a Milton Williams type signing. Fortunately, they probably don't have to spend at the top of the market to get a core guy at positions where they need guys, like tight end or a left guard, a right tackle. Like, I know tackles are kind of expensive, but they probably could find a core guy in free agency, but you are kind of threading the needle here where they're going to rely on middling free agents, and then hopefully the first-round pick is a day one guy, and then hopefully they're going to get back to 10, 11 wins with a tougher schedule next year. Like I've been saying, it's not realistic to think like we got to go for it to get back to the Super Bowl next year. I think 2027 should be more of an all-in, go-for-it kind of year. But to your point, like they've built up a lot of goodwill. They've built up a lot of momentum. So you better fill a couple of holes. I'm not expecting you to go all in terms of spending, trades, all that, but they better actually make a couple of, inspired moves where it's like, this is a core guy and he's going to be part of the team.
Yeah, that's kind of what that boils down to what I'm saying is like I like your nucleus, right? I like what you're doing so far, but you shouldn't coast yet. Like you still have a lot to prove between now and the start of the playoffs next year in terms of who you are and what you can be. Like I just hate the idea that like, all right, we're good now. Got the quarterback. Everything's fine now. It's like, well, no, the last time you felt that way, you had the greatest quarterback of all time. You can't apply similar logic when you consider that person the greatest to ever play the position. Like there's different meanings in terms of different ways to build the team. You can't say quarterback, all right, all good. It's like, well, no, you gotta add to the quarterback still. You still gotta do all that. So I think they should do that. It's just a matter of, I think they're in a good spot now where like they don't have to overextend themselves for somebody who is not exactly what they want. And by that I mean like you're not getting in the bidding war for like Christian Kirk if you don't actually believe in him. You're not getting in the bidding war for Calvin Ridley if you don't actually believe in him. Like you're no longer so thirsty for talent that you look at B-level talent and you're like, well, we got to give him $120 million. Like you can be.
That's the bright side of it.
Yeah, you can pick and choose a little bit more, but you got to choose somebody. At the end of the day, you can't just go no, we're good. Yeah, so that's what I hope.
Don't just run it back and say, well, all the draft picks will hit. We'll figure it all out at the draft. Do you have a specific guy, like a singular guy, where like if they get this one guy, I'll be happy?
We're talking about building, right? We're talking about what we want to do, and you relayed that Mike Reese report or what he's writing. I mean, the guy for me is Max Crosby. I would love Max Crosby because I just think that, if you're not going to add to the offense, then I'd love to add to the defense. And if you paired Crosby with Milt Williams and what they have been able to do in terms of building up that front seven, in terms of guys that maybe are not guys that were household names a year ago and still might not be, but like they're able to elevate their front seven. It feels like between Zach Kerr and Mike Vrabel and Terrell Williams, just the know-how they have on the defensive side of the ball. If you can get that one guy that's just like a beast, right? Like you might be able to win without having to add that star wideout because it's like the defense is just overpowering you. Like I go back to Aaron Donald, and I know that's another unicorn type, but Aaron Donald is why the Rams won. Like I look back at what he was able to do, and I don't think Crosby is Aaron Donald, but I think he's pretty damn good.
It's got a guy that needs to be triple teamed on every play.
Exactly. No, exactly. And I just think that those guys can be so impactful and can just wreck a game. And I feel like Mike Vrabel would really know how to get the most out of that guy. Again, especially if you still have Milt Williams, you keep Chase on, and then you have Crosby. Oh my God, what a fearsome front seven you have in the NFL.
So what I've been saying about Crosby is that I think the Patriots' only hope is if he goes to the Raiders and say, I will only play for the Patriots.
Right.
I want to play for Mike Vrabel. Trade me to the Patriots. Figure it out. And so that's when the Patriots would have all the leverage. It's like, we're not sending you 2 first-round picks and 2 second-round picks for Max Crosby. He wants to come here. We'll give you a second-round pick. We'll give you something pretty good, but we're not giving you all our draft picks.
I mean, I've seen that now 3 times in the last 4 years in the NHL. Like it's starting to become a thing like in sports now, where like the NHL, like Makachuk said, I'm only going to Florida. I'm not going to re-sign with Calgary. I'm only going to Florida.
Didn't that just happen with Panarin? It's like,
Panarin said I'm only going to LA. Marchand said I'm only going to Florida. And then you're like, all right, I guess we'll take the crappy return now.
People react like, can you believe they got nothing for Panarin? It's like, of course I can believe it. He said he wants to go to L.A.
Yeah, the only place he's going to go.
They have no leverage at that point.
Right, and so like I think football players, like you're starting to see that a little bit, right? Like I I can't think of a guy that's like legit said I'm not going anywhere besides here. But like, if there's one guy who can do it, it's Max Crosby, the top of his position in the NFL. Behind Myles Garrett, like the second best guy at his position, basically in the sport. He can say like I'm not going to show up and I'm not going anywhere besides where I want to go. So you guys figure it out. And then the team is like, all right, well, now we have nothing, which is not ideal, like, so yeah, that is probably your only hope. You're right. I just feel like that's the guy. Like, that's the guy that would make me go, all right, I'm in. I don't care what you do on offense because your defense is going to be stifling.
Right. So ultimately, I don't think Max Crosby specifically is going to happen. But I do think if there's one spot in the roster that the Patriots do make, we can debate whether it qualifies as a splash or not, the move they make, but I think their one big move would be at edge rusher. I think edge pressure was kind of an issue. As productive as Caleb Chason was, he was kind of singular there. And Harold Landry didn't look like the same player after he got hurt. And so that is they might have to upgrade both spots or, put someone there at each spot, especially if Chason leaves. I think Chason's going to go to whoever's paying him the most money. So I don't foresee the Patriots being that team. So feels like they're going to have two spots to upgrade there. And that was the issue, which was I thought it was a little surprising that they couldn't get pressure with just 4. But in retrospect, with Landry being one of the guys dependent on to do that and not being the same player, and Chason being a little one-dimensional, that yes, he can make plays, get a couple sacks, but he's not going to keep contained on the edge, and a good left tackle can sort of keep up with him. I don't think they had enough there. So I think edge rusher is the spot where like they are going to make some kind of sizable move. They're not going to make a Micah Parsons type trade like Mike Reese is talking about. But Jalen Phillips is out there. He's a free agent. Bradley Chubb got released by the Dolphins. He's older, but I think he would be a good addition. I think he'd be a good fit for what they want to do. If they want a long-term guy who's in his prime, Adafe Owe is going to be a free agent. Boye Mafe, who we just saw in the Super Bowl, is going to be a free agent. I feel like they got enough options there where they can extend themselves a little bit for that edge rusher, and so it does sound like that's going to be the move there. If they get a guy like Chubb or Jalen Phillips, and then they pair him with the 31st overall pick, that's a palatable plan there. I know that none of that involves upgrading the offense, so it's a wonder what they're going to do offensively. But defensively, I think the fact that Milton Williams and Christian Barmore were so good last year, it ended up not mattering all that much because they couldn't get that edge pressure and they couldn't get pressure consistently without blitzing, and so. Defensively, they got to get to a point where they can get pressure with just the 4 guys up front.
Yeah, and I agree with you entirely, and I'm sorry if I'm distracted. Matt Holliday just put his home up for sale. Did you see this?
What's this as we take a sharp left turn?
No, Matt Holliday, the former MLB player, put his home up for sale in Oklahoma. It's the biggest house I've ever seen in my life. It's got a baseball field. It's got a barn that is like a baseball batting cage on the inside. He's got a pool. This pool, Matt, is 2 levels. Have you ever heard of that before? A 2-level pool.
How does that even work?
It works. I see the pictures.
Do you go like under the top pool? How does that work?
I can't. This is unbelievable.
I would never go on the lower level.
Like cascades down to the lower level. It's pretty luxurious.
It's insane.
Okay, so it's like a waterfall type of situation.
Correct, yeah.
If we call Fred, Scott, Mike, Tony, if we pool everything together, we could have this just be our home. We could do this. There's enough space here that I'll live in the pool. I don't care. I'll put a bed in there. Like, it would be great. And then
I think Felger and Zoe are probably taking up a sizable portion of the cap on that.
That's okay. That's okay. They get first dibs on the pickleball court. They have priority access. It's like a fast pass, Like, they got it.
Yeah. Zoe might have that. Doesn't Zoe have something?
I have no idea.
I don't know about the 2 levels with the waterfall.
We need a 2-level pool. That's what we need. Anyway, sorry about that.
I would just like a house.
That'd be nice, wouldn't it?
Just a house would be nice.
How about a 2-level home? Can you get one of those first?
How about a second floor? That would be nice. 617-779-0985. I know I just gave the number. We got one more break here, Ty. If anyone wants to call in last minute, that's fine, but we're going to bring it on home here. We're going to transition into the next show. And then the Celtics are playing tonight. They will be on the Sports Hub. Matt Dolloff, Ty Anderson, 98.5, the Sports Hub. We'll be right back.
Boston's home. in sports. We're fans just like you. 98.5 The Sports Hub.
Sean Silver. I will always listen to Sean Silver talk Celtics, Ty. It's kind of like the oracle on top of the mountain. Gather round, my sons.
Yeah.
I will impart my Celtics knowledge.
I like associate him with our Celtics coverage.
He's the Celtics guy. He used to write articles for us. Maybe we'll get him.
Don't make work for him. He doesn't have to do anything he doesn't want to do.
I think he would want to do it.
Don't you put that evil on him.
I think Sean would want to do it. That's up to him, though. All right, we're going to take one more quick call here. Thanks for calling in, Matt in Rhode Island on the Patriots. Go ahead, Matt.
Hey, guys. Yeah, no, I'm looking at Matt Holliday's home. It is absolutely absurd. The money goes a long way in Oklahoma, I guess, but good for him. It also begs the question, like, he has two stud sons. Like, I think they were both first top 5 picks. So
yeah,
I think obviously a big advantage, but at the same time, like, living in those amenities, you think the kids, they were going on to other things, but no, they're good. Anyway, quickly, David Njoku is the guy who I target in free agency. I mean, I think he's really solid. And I would go try to draft a high-level tight end, later. They have so many picks this year, right? But a couple high flyers at the position. And I would, if I had my way, I'd keep the same wide receiving core. Quick question to end this. Do you think Tom Brady would actually let that deal go? I mean, like you said, like if they had him leverage and it was all he could do, I'm just wondering if he'd actually, I don't know how much power he has, but if he would actually do the deal.
All right, thanks, Matt. I think Tom Brady it sounded like he was part of the reason that Max Crosby wanted out in the first place.
Yes.
I think he was unhappy with how Alex Guerrero handled his whatever, literally handled his injury.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he might have issues there, but I don't know. It sounds like they're trying their best to smooth it over. They just brought in a new head coach, first order of business. We're going to trade our best player, I don't know.
But if it can't be bridged, it can't be bridged. You know what I mean? In terms of the frustrations or the anger, whatever it is. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to save perhaps my hottest take until 4:56 p.m. On a show that goes till 5 p.m. I don't think Tom Brady wants to help the Patriots. I don't think I think that Tom Brady is egomaniacal in the best possible way for Tom Brady. I don't think he loves the idea of Drake May winning a Super Bowl as
right.
quick as he did, basically, essentially.
Yeah, no,
I don't think he's going to want to help you out.
I don't think he even not that he wouldn't want to help them. He just doesn't see the Patriots as anything sentimental.
Right.
It was just it's weird because of how much long he played and how much they won, but it feels like he's treating it like it was just another stop in his career, which is a little weird.
Yeah, I don't know if you heard.
You heard anyone that's not the Raiders, he's treating them as competition, and I'm not going to help them.
Well, he called Mike McDaniel after they won the Super Bowl and congratulated them on winning. Mike
McDonald.
Yeah, that's what I meant. He called him after they won, congratulating him. So he's in a weird spot where he's like an ambassador, a broadcaster, but he also has financial interests in a team. It's such a weird spot
lane,
for him.
Tom.
Yeah,
and I if you pick the lane as owning the team, I'm happy with that.
Yeah, it's fine. Whatever. We'll all be good for it.
On David Njoku,
yeah,
I'd like him as a pickup. I just don't think he would necessarily solve the problems up front, blocking, pass blocking, run block. I think they need a guy that could do that. But if you bring in David Njoku as your new pass-catching tight end and then you find an inline blocker in the draft, I guess that's a palatable plan. I know Josh McDaniels probably still going to want to do a lot more two tight end offense. He tries to make that happen regardless of personnel. But if he's going to do that, he has to get a guy who's going to be actually good at the blocking part of it. I just don't know that David Njoku is going to fill that need.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Alex Barth did write about tight end standouts at the Combine. I would have to dig in and see if there's any guys that he would highlight as definite blockers, but it does feel like they're going to have to make a tight end pick in this draft, just given what they lack there, I think, long-term pitcher-wise.
It's supposed to be a good tight end draft, too.
Yeah, and so I think that it's really hard to find the tight end that they end up signing right this summer if they do, or this spring if they do end up using free agency. I feel like it's probably going to be like an unsexy pick, but it's going to address what you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like blocking. It's like, no, but like, yeah, you're going to look at the stats and go, he only had 17 catches for 220 yards. Why are we bringing this guy in? But then you're going to like see like, oh, he's a good blocker. That's why. It's going to be something like that.
I think they can accomplish the things that they need to improve and fix without making a splash. So I think hopefully they find that balance. Ty, love you, appreciate you. Thanks for coming in. I think this is one of our better radio programs together.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll get yelled at all the same.
Yes.
The name he mentioned was Sam Roush. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. Roush or Rush from Stanford. Considered one of the better tight ends blocking-wise.
See if that guy even exists or if Barth is effing with us. But we'll find out. Plenty of sports coverage there. NFL Draft Combine at 985thesportshub.com. NHL trade deadline coming up. Patriots offseason. There's going to be plenty of coverage for us on the online portion of it. But this is us on the radio, and we'll have more Sports Hub Underground podcast coming for you down the road. Thanks for listening, folks. Enjoy the Celtics. Here comes Sean Silver.